Incoming transmission from the Pan-Pacific Defense Corps' Big Mecha, but not huge podcast. This is Jake Sully Pentecost here to let you all know we're gonna win this thing as we all go into the breach and drift together with our ear holes. Here are your guests for Big Mecha! What's up, everybody?
Oh my... Hello.
Hello.
He was not expecting that one.
I figured you guys would appreciate something as terrible as that. What's up, guys? How you doing?
Pretty good. By the way, I love how you said, because we talked about this before we started, that Jake Sully Avatar, right?
Yep.
I love how...
I was very confused about that.
I think it was announced today, or maybe yesterday.
Fire and
I forget
Ash,
which.
yeah.
Yeah, it's called Fire and Ash. And you know what's funny? Still can't be bothered to give a fuck. It's weird.
Really? Dude,
I
Way
don't...
in the Water was a really good movie.
I haven't seen that one.
Only thing I hear about Avatar is how bad Way of the Water is.
How? No, legit, how? That's a great movie.
I don't know.
Whatever, man. It's alright. Welcome to Big Mecha, but not huge. Today is another special episode regarding one of our favorite series, Pacific Rim. Today we are covering the second episode. Guys, what is this movie called?
Pacific Rim Uprising.
Damn right. David, I know this is your first time watching this one. How did you feel? Did you feel safe?
This movie should get a second byline of John Boyega cannot catch a break.
I don't know. I thought this was a pretty good follow-up to Star Wars. At least he got to matter in this one.
So,
shots fired.
So like that's the
Not a fan of.
That's the heartbreaking part, right? I feel the exact same way. Is they do some shit with Star Wars to make it sound like John's going to be getting this, this important role in the series going forward, which is kind of funny because based on when this movie gets released, the first two movies of the trilogy have already been out, which means this was in production in between those two movies.
Mm-hmm.
So he essentially he's been getting like he got two roles essentially that's going to be him in the forefront of possibly two franchises.
Yeah.
And both failed. Either
for
failed
very different
reasons.
Yeah.
Star Wars failed him, and he didn't fail Pacific Rim, but like,
No.
I think Legendary.
Man,
Pacific Rim.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's going to be an interesting discussion to have when we're done with our little podcast, is the pick it apart, because then it'll be really fresh. We've talked about it. But I do agree that when I was watching a movie and thinking about it, I'm like, man, this entire time I've been saying how Star Wars failed Boyega, but it pretty much failed everybody, because thinking back, a lot of the critiques people have for characters, I cannot put on the actors or actresses.
100%.
They all did a really good job. I like pretty much everyone in their roles, and anything I dislike about the movies is really dumb stuff about the writing, which they don't get a choice on, none of them. So it's like, the stuff I don't like about the new trilogy of Star Wars has nothing to do with like the production value, certainly not that, or like the people in their roles. They all play their roles really well. All of them are putting on good performances, and it's like, man, y'all just picked the wrong train to hook your car up to.
I can already see me putting up the description for this episode.
I'm sorry.
Pacific Rim Uprising in review, where we talk about Star Wars Sequel Trilogy.
Well, here's the thing though.
Yeah.
It's accurate, but for different reasons. Because here's the thing, right? You start the movie off, and while it's a little slow, and I will admit, the beginning of the movie didn't really matter to me that much, right? It has your standard like, oh, this guy's out being a bit of a scamp. He's being big thievery. He's talking about how the world's kind of more upside down, but in a way that's more relevant to like current audience. Over like, yeah, we steal shit, so what? Yeah, whatever. We have to get by. right? And you know, you have a very like it reminds me of like, oh yeah, the mobsters are behind him and he's running away to try to escape, and like, uh-oh, he got caught by the police. Now he has to reform and be a part of the change in his life that matters to the plot of the story now, right?
I mean, it is a standard trope, you know, from stuff that you've seen before,
Yeah.
but it works in the way that it was executed. I mean, I can't fault.
I think the opening, I think that sets the tone
Yeah.
mostly.
For me, the tone is set when they get to the base.
Yes, that is also true.
Hmm.
When it decides that
For
it wants
me,
to become
like-
Pacific Rim Degrassi: The Next Generation.
Yeah,
Yes.
no, that's exactly
Yeah.
the reason why. Because like I like the banter with the kids, what little of it you get. I like how Pentecost is very much not for it, and
Don't you mess with my toppings.
he has very good reasons, in my opinion, to not be for it.
Oh, yeah.
Because like this world is kind of fucking with him in a way that I do think is unfair to, once again, the actors that play. Because this is where I segue again, which is, why are there so many Jaegers? Who are they fighting? Why are there 10 Thunderdomes and all of them are ineffective? Like, maybe it wasn't him, maybe it was 4, I forget.
Well,
But do they say that anywhere? Do you guys know anything about expanded universe on why there are so many Jaegers after the Kaiju thing
I
is
still
over?
haven't read the comics, but I'm going based off of my own canon, you know, all in my head. Basically, after the events of number 1, granted, they were able to go ahead and shut that breach, but that doesn't guarantee that they weren't going to be able to stop any oncoming attacks whenever they decide to pop up. Which, to be fair,
The breach is a bridge. It was open from their side in the first place. It's a miracle that they went 10 years without another one. Like, there's no reason that they couldn't have just made another breach 2 years later and wiped everybody out.
because at the very end of the first movie, all they did was just, you know, wipe out this one sector of wherever those precursors live. It doesn't mean that, you know, they wiped out everything.
Yeah, of course. But what I mean is, okay, so at first in the original Pacific Rim, right, it felt like they were setting up the scenario in which, hey, yeah, Jaegers are here now, but like we're always on the back foot. But they kind of market it to the people as like, yo, you know, cheer on your favorite one, right? Because like posters for him was like, it was a very boxing promotion-esque sort of a thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
But clearly they're on the back foot. They've been on the back foot from the beginning, except for maybe the first wave, right?
Yeah.
But I mean, first wave of Jaegers being around, not the first wave of the Kaiju showing up. The first wave of Kaiju showing up fucked all them over. Right?
Just to add on to that real quick, I did look up some stuff about the Jaegers that were actually commissioned in this movie. 2 of them were actually stage 4 or level 4 Jaegers that were actually around during the time of the original movie, but we just never heard about them until they actually brought them over to this one. So they were technically already around during the, I guess you could call it B-Day.
Really?
Yeah.
Because the way that they write the first movie, Striker Eureka was the first and last of its generation because they canceled all production after that.
No, he was like the last of like the.
They explicitly
right,
said
he-
that.
Yeah, they
he
did.
was a
Yeah, they said that in the movie.
Yeah, he was the number. What? He was a level 5. What was he? I don't remember.
I think
He was
fifth.
5th gen.
Yeah, 5th gen. So
was
these were
5th
2
gen.
level 4s. I think. Yeah.
Oh, so they were just collecting dust while the world
Well,
ended?
don't you remember how there were a lot of different Jaegers that were already decommissioned? They probably just ended up putting them back up.
Fair. Okay, so this, if we analyze too hard, remember that kind of makes it look like the entire plot of the first film is the people in charge have decided to roll over and die. And I'm like, that's, at no point in human history has our species ever made that choice. And when they do, those people usually immediately get killed or taken out of office.
I mean-
That's not a thing our species does. We're
I mean, the
way
people
too
who built the
aggressive.
wall would like to have a word with
I
you.
was about ready to say.
Yeah. Well, that's what I mean. It was literally, they knew, the people building the wall, the people pushing it and funding it knew that it was going to fail. They just did it because they're like, yeah, it'll make the poor people happy and give them something to do. And then they cut funding to the Jaegers, the literally one effective thing they've ever had against the giant monsters. And then they're like, okay, so we're just going to not make any more of the only thing that's worked. we're going to put all our money into something that, let's be honest, we all know is definitely going to fail, and we're just going to roll over and die. And then Pentecost is going to accidentally save the world. What?
I mean,
what?
Yeah.
He's the only human who wants to live. One man and like 100 people at a base are the only humans who want to live.
The second apocalypse.
But I don't understand. Like, why were they? All the people in power were so okay with just like rolling over for the monsters and dying. I'm like, why? Why are the only people who care like 1,000 people in this one base in China? That's it.
Well, we'll get into that. But first things first,
what?
I do want to go over initial reactions. David, since this was your first time viewing the movie, what were your thoughts?
When you ignore all of the very strong attempts to try to bait a sequel, and them leaning a little bit too hard into the third act transition of like turning it into like a Joel, I wasn't Joel Schumacher because we talked about it earlier.
A Dark Knight transition.
Tim Burton movie. You were like it's like, you know, Dutch angles, zoom in, zoom out occasionally, and like wasn't any Dutch angles like beforehand, but now we gotta get a little sassy with the montage.
Oh, we're gonna get into that montage when it comes up. We will get into that.
That is very.
Outside
silly.
of that, I actually really enjoyed the movie, which is the reason why I'm upset and I brought up the Disney stuff, because it's like, you know, they clearly wanted this to continue. There are people who are.
Oh yeah.
I will say the biggest negative of Pacific Rim, though, the Uprising, is it felt like it was made by fans than it was made by someone who, like, independent of influence of the media that he's making it for, right? Like Guillermo del Toro, when Pacific Rim could have felt like a standalone movie. And he had his own thing. He came with his own agenda, and then he moved on, or just scheduling happened, and he was like, "I'm not waiting. Fuck it, I'm going."
Right. This one felt like almost not by the numbers, but more corporatized, and like you can see that
Much
they wanted
shinier.
to flesh it out to be more of a series.
It's a Saturday morning cartoon version of the first movie.
It really is, with all the characteristics of every single character in this
Oh,
movie.
100%. Way too many children, and somehow the children are the only... I'm sorry, are you telling me you have an entire program, but these 8 cadets are it? Why? You just said you have a program. You just said that you've been running this program for 10 years. There've got to be like 30 to 40 rangers around the planet.
Nah, man.
You could just call up and be like, "Hey, bro, get on a plane. Get your ass down here. I need you to go punch a fucking monster in the head." And they could show up and be like, "Whatever."
Nah, man, they all either deserted, or they ended up getting blown to bits whenever the drones came and attacked.
Just,
And
they
you could
magically
see that
magically
one of them
died.
represented all of them when he was trapped underneath the rubble.
Yeah, just it magically every ranger is gone, and it's like, yeah, that. Look, you're so far into the movie at that point, you've either bought it or you haven't. And if that bothers you, I'm surprised you're still watching. You made it through over half the film.
That's true. To be fair, if you think about it, that final act with all the robot and monster fighting, that's literally 45 minutes long.
Oh, it's super long.
Yeah, and I was like, you know what?
'Cause
Go.
I paused because I was doing something else, and I was like, wow, this is a lot of the movie.
So before we get to that part, I'm the one reining things back in. My turn. Going back to it, everything about the film is great, and I think the part of me that makes me start thinking about the meta in the world happens pretty quickly into the beginning of the movie, and the reason why I said that the tone of the movie is set at the base for me, because the blonde-haired girl brings up a really weird point, but if she says it in a negative way, where it's like, why are you guys basically implying why you guys are excited about Pentecost? He hasn't even really been in a fight, which means no one's been in a fight though. Once again, why are there so many Jaegers? There should be way more pilots. Why are you relying on kids other than the Saturday morning cartoon shtick? And there is no time to find the other Rangers possibly.
Like that was the whole point of the plot too. It's like there is no time. We need to have them ready now. So it's like, okay, I guess maybe everybody did desert. That's maybe, I don't know, maybe.
Well, see, that's the thing, though. They deserted because
There wasn't
it's
anything
just a
going on.
job, and they haven't had what?
There wasn't anything going on.
Well, there wasn't any combat. But now that there's a valid threat, all of them have to go, oh, hold on. You gonna actually get to fight one? That thing
Yeah,
I was
I
trained
think,
for?
I think the other big issue too is that like they try so hard to mimic the first movie, where like the time limit in the first movie made sense, right? We're told the breaches are happening more and more between each other.
Mhm.
They're now almost like 24 hours between each other at one point in time. The ability to get someone from wherever their location is or repair you whatever Jaegers you have available and be ready within 24 hours, that's pretty slim. You pretty much have to be there at that point in time. And so they try to do the exact same thing here by being all like, hey, those kaijus that popped out of the one breach that actually managed to be done, they're going to the location. And so going to back to the beginning of the movie where it's like people are abandoning the program, or there's either people are abandoning the program, or there's so little few recruits that actually pass that there's so little amount of rangers anyways. But at the same time, it's the cadets are also judging the program for having no combat effectively during peacetime.
Mm-hmm.
You granted they don't know it's peacetime because the idea of the breach might come back, which is emphasis by the girl in the jail. I forget her name in the movie. Amar.
Oh, the main character?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
I had to memorize that
so
name because I'm like, they kept on saying it wrong in like different websites. I'm like, just let me hear it. Let me hear it.
So when Amara said that in the jail, it's like, so clearly this is on people's minds to some degree. But, you know, we just really don't see a fleshed out program other than like, we're just told there's a bunch of Thunderdome or a bunch of domes or a bunch of Jaegers in them, and there's pilots, but they are all super ineffective somehow at the exact same time. So it's just like, what's going on? In the first movie, I was like, what's going on in this world? Shit went bad so quickly behind the scenes.
Mm-hmm.
Granted, we have no time because we're focusing on this one event. That's fine. But they have 10 years from that point, and it's like they're trying to mimic Pacific Rim 1 in places where I don't think they should have, which is that's one of them.
Mm.
However,
Yeah, that's fair.
When they do lean into the stuff that just makes it tropey and weird and just all around fun, I think that's where it shines.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's just goofy and silly. If you accept it as the goofy, silly sequel, you're 100% going to be good with it, because that's what it is. It is the silly version of the first movie.
Yeah, it honestly really is. And I can't wait till we get into the plot, because I just want to go over every little minute detail that I can remember and be like, do you remember this? Because it's so fucking dumb sometimes, but it's so funny. Oh, man. But I'm glad to hear that you enjoyed it. Will, I know you've seen it in theaters with me, with your wife.
I did.
What are your thoughts? Have they remained the same?
So it was actually interesting watching it so soon after the first one. It makes it feel different. Like, I liked it when we watched it in theaters, but watching it so soon after watching the first film, they are night and day, literally and figuratively. The first film takes place almost entirely at night, and it's raining, or both, or at the bottom of the ocean, where there's no light. And the entire thing, and then the other world is the only thing, but that's all like weird, dark light, drug trippy, weird looking. And so the entire thing is dark, dire. The only real like bright moment you get is at the very end with the flyover with the jets and everybody lives and yay. And then the second movie, the entire thing pretty much takes place during the day. It's tons of bright colors, lots of pop. There's a lot of all of the Jaegers, even like one or two of them are like a greenish sort of brown, but they're actually different because they take the arm off of one and slap it onto another, and you're like, oh, those are two different colors. So everything, like, it is that Saturday morning, oh, here are the heroes. You can tell by their primarily colored outfits.
Oh, yeah.
You're like Ronin Warriors, Power Rangers, all that stuff. Like, they don't do it, but the robots do. So you've got, here's the red one, the pink one. That's there's the dangerous one. You can tell because it's painted black and it's dangerous looking and it's on fire. And you're like, yep.
You could definitely tell they were trying to market more towards the kids this time around. Yeah.
Oh, 100%. They went hard. They even literally have on screen the actual toys from the first movie just randomly on set during certain scenes. And those are the legitimate toys that were produced. I know because I own a few of them. And then for this movie, they did the same thing. It was just an even heavier toy push. But they really...
Yeah, but did you see the Gundam?
It's kind of hard not to. They didn't exactly hide it. Oh, look, unicorn. I mean, the funny part is that was all CG. That wasn't even really there. Or at least I don't think it was. No, because I believe there is a, like, only one story tall statue of a Gundam, but that's in Japan at somebody's office, and I don't think it's Unicorn. I think it's R78. Anyways, Gundam minutia aside,
it's R78, yeah.
And that said, I think Sunrise's studio. But anywho, there's the little nods, the showings, the fact that it is incredibly trope heavy. It's just a much more colorful film in pretty much every way. All of the cast are wildly different for the kids. They're slightly different in age and physical build. It's pretty clear that they're not all the same age, because you will get some like difference in height as kids hit puberty and stuff, but they were all like wildly different. Some of them look like they were approaching like late teens. Amara's like fucking 12. And then everybody else is like a foot taller than her.
Apparently when she was making the movie, she was like 21.
21? Oh my god, she's small.
Pause.
Yeah.
Jesus.
Pause.
Holy fuck, that girl is tiny. Never mind.
She's 21 years old.
6 years ago. She's 27.
Hang on.
She's almost 30. God damn. I mean, she looks real young.
Were they doing like?
Yeah.
Were they doing like Lord of the Rings like camera perspective tricks?
Or she's just that much smaller than everyone else.
Oh, I just saw her in Civil War recently, and she's gained quite a bit of height since then.
That's not how that works.
Did she get her legs broken and extended?
You don't get taller after 21 as a man or a woman, really. Especially women. That's really rare.
I mean, hang on. So let's see. That was actually that was 6 years ago. Good lord. Yeah.
Yeah, I looked at the 2018 and I was like, well, I feel old.
There must be like forced camera perspective or something. There must be something. Like, no, she looked way too short.
She looks like 4 feet tall. All right, what's her official height?
She managed to fit her part correctly.
Her fart? No,
yes,
she did.
Fart.
She fit it well.
Managed to fit her fart correctly.
Yeah, very much so. Oh, and I like that the first kaiju that shows up, which is clearly, or not kaiju, the first robot that shows up, which is clearly the cop one, is blue. Makes sense. It also mysteriously is not shown for the rest of the film, even though there was nothing wrong with it and it should have been fine. So it doesn't show up to pull any weight and do any work. It sits its happy ass at home.
Oh, November Ajax? Yeah.
Yeah, that just does nothing.
Yeah,
I'm like, wait, we have a
it's probably
perfectly
part
good
of that Thunderdome.
robot?
Like I instantly. It probably is a part of that Thunderdome. Like I instantly, its ass cheeks clapped the moment those 3 kaiju showed up.
Oh, they said
somehow
he did.
No, they probably got clapped during the thing.
He did say that they. Oh yeah, when they legitimately got attacked and they were pretty much all in the hangar. And I don't know about you, but I think I could fight a jet if that jet didn't move and sat still. Pretty sure I would win that fight. So, yeah, I think if I can do it, the giant robot with rockets in its hands can definitely handle that. Or sorry, the giant monster that is also a robot.
So, what did you think about the movie, Sean?
Oh,
what did you think?
Man.
Are you okay to talk about it now, or do you need to cool off?
Because I do know you gush about this, and you just want to, you're always like, I know people don't like the movie. I like it a lot. It's a great movie.
This movie touched me in all the right ways.
Cool. Oh, yep, we definitely should have had him wait a little bit.
I adore this movie, and I have different feelings about both movies because both of them, as Will already mentioned, they are completely night and day. You know, even though they're the same series, they're completely night and day different movies. I like the way that one presents itself, and I like the way that this one presents itself. The thing that solidifies this movie for me is the drones. The drones got me, and at that point, like, I was already bought into the movie, but at that point, it just like, seal the deal, make more, give me more, because you know what that represented to me, David? Neon Genesis Evangelion, motherfucker.
Jesus.
So, spoilers for End of Evangelion. There is something in that movie called mass-produced Evas, which are basically giant white drones that are similar to all the other Evangelions out there. They all look the same, but then they all go, I wouldn't say berserk, but they end up becoming alive because they're all technically powered by their quote-unquote angel power, or whatever you want to call it. And then they all end up looking as awful as they can be. This movie reminded me of that, and I felt like this was the only way that we're ever going to get live-action Evangelion in any type of capacity. And so that managed to just have me beaming throughout the entire way. I was
mean,
thrilled.
don't say that. I did just see an article about
really
Voltron live action
all the
rearing
different
its head
actors in
again.
this one.
So
Scott Eastwood, I don't normally care for him. I actually enjoy him in this. He's usually not used very well in, you know, the little roles that he's in. He did fine in this. I liked his little things that he had going on between him and Jake, and especially when they were trying to, you know, pretend to not be interested in that one officer.
Jules.
And then obviously the final 45-minute fight. That thing was just, it's monstrous, literally. I just really enjoyed this movie from beginning to end. And that's not even on a superficial level. I just love this movie.
Damn. There you go.
So, before we go into the plot, let's go ahead and talk about the cast real quick. So this is another movie made by Legendary. This time it's being written and directed by Stephen DeKnight. Stephen DeKnight, he's done a few other films. I'm pulling up his stuff right now. He did the Spartacus series. I believe he actually just finished working on the next Spartacus series. He actually joined the writer's room for multiple Transformers movies.
Can you guys still hear me?
Here. He was writer and director and producer and showrunner for Daredevil, the TV show, the one that was on Netflix. He's also been around for Smallville, Buffy, Angel, Dollhouse, you know the works. And he's very active on Twitter, so if everyone wants to give him a follow, he is Stephen DeKnight on Twitter. We are not going to call it X because I refuse to call it that. This movie is casting or starring John Boyega as Jake Pentecost. We got Scott Eastwood as, what's his name? Nate Lambert, who just goes by Nate. We've got Kaylee Spaney as Amar and Scrapper. We've got, what is her name? Ivana Sakno? I think that's her name.
Who's that?
But in the movie, she's the Russian girl who plays Victoria. You may recognize her recently from the Ahsoka TV show. If you haven't watched it, I'm not going to spoil it for you guys, but she's awesome in that too. And other than that, the only other person that I want to mention, who I think is the only problem that I have with this movie, is Rinko Kikuchi. Now, if you remember from the first movie, she was an awesome part as Mako Mori. What do they do in this movie? They fucking fridge her.
I mean...
Yeah, she gets fridged pretty hard. I will say her death, out of all things that happened, it definitely felt, I thought the teenager's death was, spoiler, one of them dies. Ooh, which one? If I keep you to find out.
Watch Degrassi, it has Drake.
I know, right? Oh no, not
Do
Drake.
do we really need to bring him into this? There's a whole thing about him right now online. I don't think we need that in this one.
What, Drake
Yeah,
and teenagers?
yeah, there is.
Nah.
Oh man, but no, I thought that part was bad with the kids, but then a part of me is like, I started thinking about it afterwards when I go get food. I'm all like, you know what? Nah, the worst thing has to be Kiko's thing was I don't know, like I felt like if they didn't want her in the movie, just don't put her in the movie.
Raleigh, they literally don't
like,
even talk about him.
like that.
What happened to him?
They mentioned his name once.
Yeah, they say
just once.
They say
and
his
he's
name.
Just no longer part of the Defense Corps. He's not dead though. He is definitely not dead. That's all I
Okay,
know.
but was he? Well, did he date Mako after it was over? Just to, at the very least, to piss off Pentecost?
I guess I can find out in the comics. I don't know. Oh, and the last two characters, Charlie Day and Bern Gorman, reprised their roles as the scientist duo from the previous movie, in completely different roles, basically, or different not roles, but different job types.
The way they act is very different too.
Yes. But with good reason, at least for Charlie Day. Bern Gorman, I'm not entirely sure why, but we'll get to that. So, let's go ahead and take this down beat by beat for plot. Ready? All right.
No.
So, we start off... No. Mako shows up. If I remember correctly, the order is kids show up, they get into the base.
Oh wow, we're just
they get like, hey, this is
You're totally skipping the
just,
beginning.
Oh,
just there,
I
goes
thought you did
first
the beginning.
10 minutes.
I thought I did the beginning earlier.
Wow. All right. So
That's okay.
back it up. Back it up.
Because I said the beginning earlier.
We were
that's the reason
talking
why.
about it earlier.
Let me gloss over that real quick. So the whole beginning is where it's Jake narrating the fact that the Battle of the Breach happened 10 years prior. The year is now 2035, and he used to be a former pilot, and now he is not, and he's the son of Stacker Pentecost, Idris Elba, and now he's busy selling Jaeger parts in the black market over in Santa Monica, California, and now he's making some shady dealings with all these people, trying to get random stuff like, what was it? Frosted Flakes or Tricks or whatever it was.
It was for breakfast cereal and sriracha very specifically.
Yep. Like, here's a car. Yeah, give me some sriracha.
Oh, whole case. Whole case.
Like, okay. Yeah. So basically he's trying to lead these people to get a certain part, and then as he gets there, he's being held at gunpoint, oddly enough, because obviously shady dealings.
Not yet. I mean, it starts off nice enough, and then they're like, I don't like you. I think I might shoot you.
Well, yeah, it's pretty much like Blade looking at Deadpool, that kind of thing. No?
Yeah, no, nah.
Whatever. I'll cut that out.
Nah.
Anyways, so at that point, we've got him being chased by all these other black market dealers, and then he's trying to fend them off and trying to get wherever this part's going. And it turns out it's this little teenage girl named Amara who's building her own Jaeger out of scrap parts.
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember how tall this thing is?
Like one story?
It's half the size of a regular
Yes.
building, yeah. It's tiny.
I'm very surprised. I'm very surprised. Like, in general, she was able to pull that off. Like, not because little girl does what it looks like the impossible, but it's like, damn, there's really that many parts out there. Like, she's able to do this. I'm assuming she got caught because if Jake could track her, she can get tracked. Right.
But it makes me also wonder how often she's been doing that, or was it just that one specific part that sent everybody off?
Right? Like, because she made not only a functional little one and a half story Jaeger, that thing could move. It had a very unique way of traversing. Like, the fact that it was able to, like, you didn't just immediately get it concussed as it did a little rollout thing.
She was able to Samus.
Was,
yep.
Right? Like, that's genuinely impressive.
It was a terrible, fight a giant kaiju robot, though. You would never win that fight. That's like sending a gerbil to beat a Rottweiler.
It's definitely a support bot, which that definitely happens later on. And then as she's running away with the Jaeger and Jake inside, and he's trying to figure out why it's not running off of 2 neural loads instead of 1 because it's so small it doesn't need it. Which, after looking at it, was it even connected to her brain at all? Because I don't recall seeing anything on her other than just her arms and legs.
I don't. She said it like it did, like she spoke the words, but she didn't wear a helmet of any kind, I don't think. Did she?
Yeah, I didn't think so either.
I didn't see it. I thought I saw. Okay, I don't think I saw a helmet. I did see her it might have been maybe like a band around her head or something. Because I remember the order was she shook something off her head, and then she removed the cable from her hand, and then removed the glove from.
And
her
she
hand.
threw the gloves.
So I thought there was some head movement.
It also
Yeah,
could
she
have
threw the
been a
glove, like, what are you
collar or
doing?
something like that.
Maybe. Either way, it does look like it's mainly more mechanical compared to anything else that we've seen Jaeger-wise. Speaking of Jaegers, she ends up running up against a giant one that we ended up making fun of because he just automatically dips throughout the rest of the movie, November Ajax. He's basically the police officer.
He's a beach cop. I'm sure that the 2 men inside, probably both men, I don't know. I'm sure they're very fit, very tan, and they definitely hang out at, Venice Beach.
I mean, if you're going to go that far, you might as well just say that it's Baywatch.
No, not Baywatch. They would be, I was thinking more Chips.
Wow, that is a callback. Oh my god, how old are you?
Me? Like 30s-ish?
We're not going to dive into that.
I like how you're like, I feel old talking about the years of the movies, and then you'll fucking break out Chips.
Do you want me to go older? How about this? Highway Patrol, one of the original cop serials on TV that also took place in California.
Yeah, I don't know that
one.
So
I don't expect you to. It is black and white.
I'm gonna believe
I only know that.
So
I only know that from a YouTube video, and it's in LA. So hello, Granddad. How are you doing?
Well, grandson. It's nice to see you thriving. You and your.
Hey, grandson. What happens next?
Political joke. I'm surprised Ajax didn't just shoot her immediately. And a police officer used a taser. That's weird.
I mean, how else are you going to stop the giant robot?
Well, technically they did taser her.
But they tased the robot.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, they tased the robot. Yeah. But that's what I mean, though. They used the non-violent option first. In this lawless, everyone has a handgun stealing parts. Also joke about how cops shoot people when they're chasing them. But but more so, it's kind of like, man. Not only did this guy have now you said that about the whole Chips thing. Yeah, that guy was just like a beat cop.
You could hear it in his voice too. He was like, he was just tired. He was like, "Please stop.
Why are you running? Why are you?
Where'd you go?"
Exactly.
You know how much paperwork I'm gonna have to fill out.
He was 5 minutes away from whining. Come on, just stop.
Right? Ugh.
You were about to get a stopper.
It was great though when he finally does tase her or tase Scrapper, and then he just knocks on hey, get out.
That was good. I like the tap tap, and then it opens.
Yeah. So what happens next, David?
So we get to the police station, and that's when I said earlier where at least one person we see so far is worried about the breach opening back up, which is Amara. She's in jail with Jake, and there's some banter with them. I like the banter with them.
Oh yeah.
Keep quiet. Okay, how about
they
this?
Banter.
It was
the two of them have chemistry.
I think that's also, which goes back to the whole thing of I feel bad for John Boyega because he did that in Star Wars as well, and I apparently he's like that as well in one of the other movies that he did. I think Risky Business, something business. He was kind of a little sassy there as well, a little bit, I believe, or it could have been something else. I forget what. Somebody was telling me about it earlier.
I know he was in a sci-fi horror movie. I think it's Attack on the Block.
Yeah, Attack the Block. Speaking of a movie that may or may not ever get a sequel.
still haven't watched it, even though I own it.
So, like, he's really good here, and really great chemistry. And then we get to see I don't want to say stilted performance because it's supposed to be a hologram, but he gets dragged off into an interrogation room or holding room, whatever you want to call it, and he talks to his
Mako,
sister, Mako, over hologram, and I gotta say, like, she definitely sounded like she didn't want to be there.
You're not wrong, at least in the way that I interpreted that too. It definitely did seem like it was more of a. It didn't seem like it was. Well, it might have been contractual, but maybe it could have also just been love for the franchise. But then maybe it's like, hey, I know I'm gonna die here in a little bit, so here's my performance.
She's only on screen for a total of that conversation, one other conversation with John Boyega, and then she's alone in the helicopter, and the entire helicopter for her, for what you see, they probably filmed all that in a few hours in one day, and that's it.
Yep.
Yeah, probably. I have to imagine, she gets brought back in for a sequel, and and she's the only returning cast member. I feel like that probably has to mess you up a little bit in terms of performance of being like, yeah, they're probably, even if she didn't know they were gonna kill off immediately, I bet she's like, oh wait, this is all that's here.
Wait.
I know why I'm here.
Only cast members, sir.
What? Oh yeah, true. Yeah, even then, he might as well. Yeah, that's true. The
Both
scientist
of them came back.
Yeah, I was about to say.
Yeah, because he is the major part, obviously. But well, even then, he's not the same. He's.
But that's mainly because they wanted to.
Okay, I don't want to talk about it right now because we're skipping ahead. But Charlie Day, interesting guy.
Yeah. It's mainly because they wanted to focus on the new people that we have going on here.
They have to introduce them and make you care before they actually get to stakes.
Well, such as how we have the new, I don't know exactly what she is. Is she the CEO and chief programmer? Her name is Xiao. She's a Chinese scientist.
She is the head of that company. She is the lead.
Yeah, that's
She's
right.
in charge of it. I would assume she owns it. She has a board, but she's the one in charge. She also happens to be someone who does like programming and science and stuff like that. She happens to know that too.
Exactly. Yeah. And then
she's basically Elon Musk was talented.
Damn.
What'd you say?
You're not wrong.
I want to try to even though we kept talking. She's basically what if Elon Musk was talented?
Ooh.
Shots fired. You hear that? Only on Big Mecha, but not.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's right. He definitely will possibly ever hear that.
But in this, we're introduced to her. We're introduced to brand new Jaegers that come about. We've got Saber Athena.
Okay. Hold on. Before you do that, did anyone else feel the? Oh wow! Name of robot. Oh wow! Name of robot. Oh wow!
What?
I was like, man, we're really leaning into the exposition of the genre, aren't we? Because when she's walking around and she literally just gets super excited and goes, "Oh wow," and then just exposits to you. That's the name of that robot. This is why it's cool.
Oh, that's what you
that's
mean.
The
oh
robot.
My god!
This
I'm
is
like,
why it's cool.
Why are you just randomly going, "Oh wow"?
That's all she was doing the entire time. Is just excited exposition. So like, Saber Athena is the fast one. That one has 3 people in it. That one it's literally reading off their thing.
She's a little girl that's happy by the bright new toys that she gets to play with. All right.
I know. It's just another. I didn't say it was bad. It's just that's another trope that they lean into heavily.
Yeah, it is. It is. So, jumping off from where David was going, we are introduced to these new Jaegers, and we're also introduced to the fact that Xiao is trying to launch this drone program, but then we've also got Charlie Day working for her, and we still have Bern Gorman, his other scientist friend, playing as Gottlieb. he has an idea for getting Jaegers out to their specific landing points, rather than just bringing everything out by ship or by helicopter. Which takes too long.
That must take forever, by the way.
Man. Right. He wants to use kaiju blood as jet fuel, which I think is pretty cool as an idea. But Charlie Day shoots him down. He's like, "That'll never work. I don't know what you're talking about. Well, I'm this guy."
Technically, he shoots him down because he looks at him and he's not wrong. He's like, "What you're doing is you're trying to fix a problem, and if my boss's plan gets approved, your problem literally no longer exists." Because his boss's solution is, instead of moving a Jaeger from one place to another, just build 1,000 Jaegers. Which I feel like somebody else could have thought of at some point, but you know.
You know what's funny? One thing, I'm not trying to skip ahead here. I kind of thought that when he said no to that idea, I was like, they're definitely leading into, oh yeah, he just went mainstream. He's big scientist.
That's
man.
What I was thinking.
Because yeah, the if Pacific Rim Charlie Day character, I forget his name.
Newt.
I'm bad with people's names sometimes. Newt. He would have been all for this. Wait, we get to use kaiju blood for something else?
There would have been.
Oh,
he would have just been losing it, going, "Dude, kaiju rockets," and he just sort of been way too into it.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Like that was the first sign of just like, oh yeah, this movie is a bit different, which then gets a better payoff later on. But when we first see him, like, man, why he should be really excited about this? Why isn't he excited about this?
At least we understand. At least in terms of what I was able to figure out, he turns him down strictly because of what we find out later on in the movie, not because of what we've just discussed here.
Because the thing is, the reason he gives them makes sense though to what the movie's presenting to you, right? It's why try to solve a problem that's going to be, why try to introduce a new problem to a solution that's going to be solved in the next few scenes here, or basically in the next.
Yeah, they were going to have the vote like 2 days later,
Yeah.
so he's like, dude, there's no point. Once the council says yes, problem no longer an issue. You'll be fine. And he's right.
Very pragmatic.
So, Will, what happens after Shao and Charlie Day show up to the base?
They show up. We find out that she doesn't really do hands. She's not a handsy person. So she just kind of looks coldly, and then Charlie leans in and shakes people's hands.
And she doesn't like repeating herself.
She doesn't like that. Yeah, which. So we'll talk about that later. But you have them getting introduced. You have everybody settling in. You have the beautiful scene where, again, John Boyega and Scott Eastwood are just kind of going back and forth, and they do kind of feel like two people who have history and are sort of working through some of their emotional baggage, or one of them is at least. The other one has just decided to avoid it all.
Right.
And it works.
It's actually
very believable. Scott Eastwood comes off very much as, I mean, when they nickname him, somebody says, "Who was the haircut?" Literally just talking about him, and I'm like, that's a solid description. His character is very rigid, but he's supposed to be the guy who stayed in the military and has been there for years. And it's like, yeah, that's exactly how he would come off. And he doesn't like Jake for reasons, which they don't even...
Do you remember Jake's impression of him when he's talking to Mako?
It was pretty good. I laughed. I was like, yeah, it's actually... it's incredibly sarcastic, but that's pretty good. And then at the end, he's like, I mean, he is incredibly sexy and handsome, so, you know.
Jake. I'm incredibly handsome, Jake.
You know... we learned this about Jake, where basically... anyone can get it in his
Oh
world.
yeah, 100%. Well, he's like, he sits there and he like bitches and moans that you're doing something he doesn't like, and then he's like, but I mean, you are also a beautiful person. And it's like, God, are you just like super wholesome, but you put up this like, it's like if Han Solo, if you peeled it away and it was just this really nice dude underneath, and you're like, so he's Han Solo for 5 minutes, but if you talk to him long enough, he just starts throwing out compliments and being like, you know, I noticed you looking at that person, you should go talk to them. And it's like, what the fuck? You're so nice. Why?
Yeah.
Like, really?
Yeah. He's
Like,
super
really
nice,
supportive,
super
like a
supportive.
bro.
He actually cares about you. And it's like and that is also their relationship. So it works and it makes sense. They know each other and everything.
Don't forget their dynamic with Officer Reyes.
With Jules? Calling it a
Yeah.
dynamic is a little odd. She pretty clearly kind of has a thing for Scott Eastwood's character, and Jake is just sitting there, kind of being a shit. And his comment, I don't even know if it was off the cuff, where he's just like, "Well, that's confusing." Later on, that very on point. He's not wrong. That is a little odd. I think I know why she did it, but he just is playing the horn dog. And I would argue he is being a
Yeah.
wingman because by being that overtly like excitable and like a puppy in a room filled with people kind of turns you off to him, and then like, oh, these other options are better. So I don't know, their dynamic is really good. I like that. The ice cream scene is fun. And then after that, because
Don't you be talking about my toppings, son.
he did. Okay, to be fair, John does like food, so that might have been a legitimate. It might have been a
Yes, he
legit
does.
clapback. So
You know, I am gonna criticize
Hey.
his toppings. That's way too many
Hey.
sprinkles.
I-
That is just too
Did
many.
you see how he fucking put them on there? He did it like
he
Salt
did.
Bae.
He just drizzled them on
Yeah,
top,
right.
and then he threw a bunch in his mouth. And I'm sorry, am I the only one on this podcast who's eaten sprinkles with a spoon before?
Yeah.
Yes, probably.
That sounds disgusting as all fuck. What the fuck
It
is
tastes
wrong with
good.
you?
Are you secretly calling us from like a dimensional universe like Pacific Rim where like you're like dystopian eating sprinkles out of a spoon?
No,
Like-
no.
Come
Do I
on.
need to show you the my spoon is too big video?
Okay, if we're gonna do that, we should watch more of his content than just that, because Half a Beautiful Day is very sad, but very good. But
All right, that was more than what I needed for my Don Hertzfeld
I
reference.
really
but
like Don's stuff. I'm
anyways.
sorry. I have it on Blu-ray, but
I will be procuring that from you. But anyways, so from there we do have like the everybody meeting everybody. How Jake is basically saying, "Hey, I'm only here because I was in jail. This is my one-way ticket to
Yep.
get out of jail and to get on everybody's good graces and then get back to what I was doing." He goes like, "Fine by me. I don't care." Blah
so
blah blah blah.
soon.
And then Mako comes in to meet with the drone people, and then everybody's upset because apparently, once you have drones take over, the pilots are going to be considered redundant, and then they no longer have a purpose in life. At least that's what I got from
That
the
scene has problems.
Um,
Logically, it makes no sense. Like,
Yeah, I
they
agree.
have that, but okay, so there's several layers of, well, that doesn't make any sense, and it's just there, but they don't concentrate on it, so we're fine. But it doesn't make sense
Mhm.
for several reasons. Here are a few. Drones exist in the actual military, and we still have pilots. It's called having both. You still need people who know what they're doing, because that's still a giant robot. Someone still has to pilot it. It's just one at a time, not two people per robot. So you would still have a training program. Rangers would still exist, and experience would still be necessary. So they're not redundant. They just change job title. I don't understand everyone losing it. 3, generally in the military, the people who fight, especially if you are a frontline fighter like them, I'm not in the military, I guess I could be wrong. Generally speaking, they don't want to die in combat or be horribly maimed. This is a guarantee of avoiding both of those things while still completing your objective. You want to find me a professional military person who's like, no, that's not good. I need to go die for my country, or lose a leg, or be horribly, damaged in some way. What?
this isn't Godzilla -1. We don't need that.
That's what that scene says. It says all of those things. It says that the Rangers would rather go almost die and be maimed. It says that the Rangers are like, well, it'd be less efficient to put 2 people in one robot than 1 person per robot. And they're like, well, we can't just pilot them with, controls from a distance. It's like, guys, that already happens. What are you talking about?
Yeah, I know. I think they mainly shot it, at least, 1, to just
Yeah.
further the plot along, but then 2, because they really wanted that one scene, or that one cut of that guy who goes like, "You're all just a bunch of desk jockeys! We're a bunch of pilots! What do you know?"
Yeah,
That thing.
which I get, but it's not like the desk jockeys are the ones piloting. They didn't take Bill from accounting and go, "Hey, Bill, yeah, I know you've never fought anything, but I'm gonna need you to go punch this giant monster."
I mean, you know what? If it was Bill from accounting, I would feel so bad for him later on. That's all I'm gonna say.
So to add on to that, it really does depend on who you talk to. I have met military people who are like the nobility of going out into combat, and not nobility, but that's the wrong word, but like going out and fighting is a more preferable option than to outsource this to something or someone else that can't. My father was kind of like that. Then again, I won't say exactly why he wanted to leave the army after Vietnam, but it was definitely more so a bureaucracy reason than anything else. But he was one of the people who were like, "No, I want to go out there. I want to fight. Right? No, fuck that.
Okay.
Right?" Um, he did some he did some kind of training where like he jumped out of helicopters a little bit, or at least did one of the
Yeah.
helicopter landings, really
Yeah.
fucked his knees up. But like no, he was one of the people who were like, no, we're gonna go out there. I'm not gonna just wait for you know artillery or wait for someone else to come save me or come do the job, whatever. We have a mission. We can go do it.
Okay.
Right? We're available. Things like that. So there are people who are like that. I had a friend who went to Iraq. Sean knows them. Uh, Keone, if you remember his name. He talked with me about that, where he was like, he had that contradiction feeling of like, I I I I want to go out and fight and do it all, and I don't want to just rely, and but also too, I also don't like the consequences of like of what I feel afterwards, right? Because he was kind of talking about that. So don't get me wrong, and I have had people who are like, bro, I'm punching in 9 to 5, and once my 4 years are out, I'm out. Fuck this, I don't care. Like that's the problem with military. It gets all sorts, so it's definitely hard to kind of
Hmm.
gauge it and narrow it down. So that part I'm not too. So that part, yeah, obviously the yelling, being like, I'm not gonna become no desk jockey, is obviously hyperbolic, but like it isn't too far out of the
Okay.
realm of things that I have heard throughout my life.
That makes sense.
Then there you have it, folks. End of the
Yep,
movie.
and then it ended. It was really weird. It was a lot shorter than you said.
Yeah,
Yeah.
everyone
Well,
everyone
problem
just
solved.
went home. They're like drunk. I will say that to add to that, which is clearly her drone technology. I guess I'll skip ahead slightly, a little bit. Her drone technology looks like it's a plug and play system, right? You could argue that you don't need to have a cockpit to have a Jaeger do its thing if they're all drones. But her system works pretty well in a drone current cockpit. So like even then, the idea that you would all be replaced immediately is definitely like this, like
Right.
it's for the movie, we have to create tension because the movie, we desperately need it. But even when you look at it from a glance, how quickly she was able to apply her drone technology to other Jaegers is like,
Yeah.
wait a minute, what was the tension here?
Yeah.
That's the problem with this movie.
Yeah.
It's
Which is,
why
I
was
mean,
this
that's
tension
most of
even
the
here?
that's most of my
Because there's like
argument
two
against
more
it
instances
too,
like
because
that.
it's like we can talk about the philosophical of, well, should there be people in combat, which should we ever watch Gundam Wing? That's like the main philosophical debate of the entire anime, which will be fun. But uh the idea of should people be in combat or not, fine, but even at the very least, they had to acknowledge that A, it was really hard to get pilots because you had to have two humans who were compatible and then put them in, which is apparently super difficult. And then B, you had to, not only did you have trouble doing that, but you also didn't have enough of the Jaegers. Her, because she made them super standardized, she didn't have to care about things like, well, I'm not going to stick a human in it, so I don't give a shit. I'm not going to have escape pods. I'm not going to include safety. I'm going to make the armor probably way shittier. But you know what? There's going to be 5 of them running in a squad, and I'm going to just have them annihilate this thing. And if you're in that and you get annihilated, you tap a button, jump to another one in a different, like, sitting off to the side, and hop right in. basically like playing a sports video game. You're controlling somebody, tap a button, and flip over to another one. It makes more sense tactically, and in the concept of we are fighting a war, it makes more sense to have drones, especially when you do not know what you're going to be going up against. It makes more sense to have more than to pour all of your resources into a smaller number of high profile things. Plus, you could also argue that once it all gets settled over time, you have your main infantry as drones, because who cares, send them in. And then you have your really fancy, cool paint job. They look nice for photos, but they're also really advanced because you have the money to do that. You're not spreading limited income to very limited things. You're like, well, I know how much one drone costs. Just multiply it by 10, and that's 10 of them. And it's a static figure. But I don't know how much R&Ding a brand new Jaeger with brand new everything is going to be. So, arguably going forward, that makes more sense. But, these are all questions that the movie didn't really want to ask or answer. It was literally just for one throwaway scene. I don't know why it bothered me so much. I'm very sorry.
We call that a stun lock.
Hey, Will, I just want to say I appreciate you.
Thank you. Thank you.
You know what's funny though? Your hypothetical would have been really useful in a thing I'm going to say later on about the end of the movie, in which, man, it really sucks there isn't a Pacific Rim 3, because I was gonna leapfrog off of that from later, so put a note on that one.
I actually plan on doing that too because of product placement.
Okay, if we're gonna get to that, you know what missed opportunity real quick? Why was there no Pacific Rim video game? What the fuck, man? What?
There was.
Oh,
it was on mobile
I
only.
said video game, not cash grab. Not saying there aren't actual games on mobile. That is a thing. Phones are a legitimate platform. If you tell me a mobile only based on a movie that was so thirsty to become a series, yeah, that shit's just going to be a cash grab and it's going to be terrible.
All right, just to sidestep on this real quick. So I actually recently just bought some Pacific Rim pinball tables on Pinball Effects.
Interesting.
For PS5. They're not great. They've done a lot better when it comes to other ones, but it was just nice being able to see Pacific Rim represented somewhere. That's all.
Give it some sort of representation.
Pretty much, yeah. I also managed to get them along the same times where I ended up getting the Godzilla and Kong ones. But anyways, just to get back to the plot real quick. So after everybody had their little conniption fit about the drones, Jake and Mako, they end up talking to each other, having their brother-sister moment. And that's when Jake is like, I'll do anything as long as it helps me, stay out of here. But of course, I'll also do anything for you. And she goes, well, guess what, brother? I have just the idea. I'm going to get you into Gypsy Avenger with your favorite partner. Who's his partner? Nate. Sexy Nate.
Sexy man.
And so then we get everybody going over to...
It was Australia. Opera House.
Australia.
Yeah. The one thing they don't sell in the movie, I guess, is the boiling just below the surface, sexy, hot intrigue between Nate and Jake. I never thought at any moment they were going to kiss. They did not sell that in the movie. Very, very disappointed.
I mean, people can...
Oh, I'm sure there's definitely a lot of slash fiction on that, but I'm saying, in the movie, I never once was like, they're definitely going to kiss off screen, as soon as this is over. They're going to be like, fuck you, and then smash their faces together.
Yeah. They've done that in a specific movie called Grindhouse's Planet Terror, sir, where it was literally the male and female leads of that movie. They said, fuck you, and then they indeed start, going at it. And then as soon as they start focusing on her leg with the gun attachment, that's when the clip actually cuts out, and then it comes back later. That's a funny movie. Anyways, So they are in Australia, and they're there to guard everybody, and they're supposed to go over to talk about the whole drone assessment, and Mako is coming in on a helicopter. And then come the birds. Alfred Hitchcock is the birds.
No, well, listen, no. Before Alfred Hitchcock decides to come and invade this movie, I have to say, when they did, because obviously if you're going to do anything on Australia, and it's a movie not made by Australians, you're going to see the
That's
Sydney
how
Opera
they
House,
know. Otherwise,
right?
it's just
almost
a
rule.
desert coast city. Do you know how many of those there are?
How do you know you're
really
in
should have been a
Australia if you
kangaroo.
don't see the Sydney Opera
It's
House,
true.
right? You
There was a movie called Fall Guy
You can
recently
read-
that just did that too.
But I love how we were in the helicopter scene. My brain immediately looked at the guns pointing at the
Oh
city.
no, you didn't! No,
And
you
I-
fucking didn't! I know where you're going with this.
and I went, is Australia a prison place again? Like, is no one allowed to leave? Like, when do you go to Australia?
one visits
You stay
Australia.
in fucking Australia.
You go to Australia.
David, that's not where I thought you were going to go with that. I thought you were going to go the other
Wait,
route
wait.
that you always argue.
Which is? You have to
Junon.
help me out with that.
From Final Fantasy VII.
Oh. Oh my god.
The gun
We
pointed.
we
That just
can't.
pointed at the ocean,
We
sir,
can't.
not at the citizens.
No, but basically it's the pointless gun. Okay, this was an old conversation he and I had. Here's the synopsis. When I was a real dork about this, I'm like, all right, I'm gonna put the airship in front of Junon. I'm gonna see where this gun goes towards and where the cone would be, as lenient as possible, even ignoring the fact that all Earths have some sort of curve in which you can't hit something out of your range, right? That gun shoots at nothing. It hits nothing.
Yeah.
There's nothing over there. At least not from Matt. And so, him saying that is just like, oh, you're trying to fucking get me to fucking rant about Junon again. Well, that was old though. It doesn't bother me as much anymore. But
Final Fantasy.
Yeah.
Great shit.
But yeah, no, I do love how those multiple turrets are just pointing at the build. No, more specifically, granted, they could turn. Obviously, the turrets can turn. They can face up the ocean. Else, why would you have them? I do love, however, they were already pointing at the city. A part of me is like, you couldn't keep them stationary, pointed up, or straight down.
The safest thing
Did
is
they really have to be pointed at the
ocean away from
civilians?
Because then if one mysteriously went off, or if there was a malfunction, then hopefully it hits just water and we're all safe. If it's pointed any other direction, there's a chance it'll hit something in the city.
I have something to
some
add on
delay.
to the final fight later on, because that kind of bothered me a little bit, but then I just went with it.
But you know what? Those guns pointed at civilians. That ended up being a benefit.
Was there to help with
benefit to the
public order,
homies.
Because I don't know about you, but I definitely commit less crimes when I know that a gun the size of an entire car is pointed at me.
When I go protest, I don't want to get with the Kia Sorento at full speed.
Yeah, yeah. They were protesters, but let's be honest, they weren't that rowdy. Probably had something to do with the massive guns pointed at them, but just saying.
No, listen. To be fair, they're not
some of those people
protesters.
were.
They're monster
Some of
fuckers.
those
Whoa,
people
whoa! Not everybody's Charlie
that's
Day in this movie, okay?
They were protesting.
Yeah,
like,
one of them was
One of the
Pro-Kaiju,
headlines
one of
like
them was
Pro-Kaiju?
Pro-Monster. The people with the weird
Monster.
outfits on, the headdress and shit. Those people were into the monsters religiously. They were the crazy cult who worship the monsters.
Yeah.
Or they're just a doomsday cult, because those definitely still exist in our world too. And they happen to pick the kaiju and be like, how dare you mess with the natural order? God hates us and he wants us dead. That's why he sent the kaiju. Why are you stopping it? I said God, but you could just insert whatever weird name for some sort of being that is telling you things in your brain. There are lots of doomsday. What?
Ormageddon. Ormageddon.
There you go. Ormageddon told you that the giant monsters with the horrible blood that damage everything were sent by him to destroy us because we did a bad thing and we deserve it. And those people are all like, no, don't hurt the kaiju. They're good. They're our judgment. Blah, 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 blah. Yeah, the same people who went on top of the buildings at Independence Day and literally got shot in the face. So.
Yeah, that's oh my god.
No,
wow.
no. They didn't get shot in the face. They got shot in
obliterated.
they got shot in their everything.
Actually, that is pretty accurate. They did not get shot in the face. They ceased to exist.
And I'm gonna be real with you. Yes, could I believe that there's a cult of
Oh,
monster people who are like the judgment? You brought a lot of logic to this. However, retort.
Reverse card.
They just want to fuck the monster. Listen, I'm be real with you. Anyone in the modern era now that starts a movement, a part of them wants to like get a little bit.
So
with the thing.
Elon Musk just really wants to have sex with a car in a tube.
He wants a lot of things that he also claims that he doesn't believe in.
Like,
I mean, he joked about wanting to fuck cat girls because there was that whole cat girl Twitter post he did ages ago. There's and obviously he doesn't like children.
Well,
the fact that he has so many of them.
Oh.
Yeah, he doesn't like any of them.
That's fucked up, man.
No, he really doesn't. But I don't want to get into that.
But yeah, no, like if you're like I looked at the people who are like pro-Kaiju, right? And they had all these years to stew on this, to think about it, right? To really remember the fact that they literally just kill everyone. My cynical heart is just like they just want to have sex with the kaiju, which then again leads back to Mr. Newt later on.
He was a kaiju groupie. That is his description from the first movie, and it's accurate, 100%.
Exactly. That's how everything manages to coalesce into this new movie, and I'm fine with all of his changes. But we'll get to that. So Mako's coming in on the helicopter, and then all of a sudden, Alfred Hitchcock starts playing. We got birds floating in a certain direction. We're going, what the hell's going on? Everybody starts turning to a different direction, and then you see this giant mass coming out from the ocean. What is it? It's a big black fucking giant ass Jaeger, and it's badass looking. It's the Obsidian Fury.
Its name is Obsidian Mad. It's angry rock.
Yes. Go on, David. What are
you know
I
what's
was about
funny?
To say? What are you laughing at?
I gotta say, even though it doesn't hold up a bit later in the movie, but they have good reason for it not to, the biggest improvement from these two has to be these robots can now take a punch.
Yes.
Oh yeah, no, they really do.
I like how these guys were able to dish it out and really go at it. My only slight criticism, like, bro, really, you would really take time to do that? Is when as they're fighting, Obsidian Fury comes out, whips out both blades, because he's not gonna be outbladed in this fight.
Flaming chain blades.
And God, Gypsy, not Gypsy Danger anymore, Gypsy Avenger, with his magical pulse ray gun that drops billion-ton buildings on
Gravity
people.
Cannon.
He gets sliced, a little nick on the side of his armor near his ribs.
Yeah, and he holds himself.
And he holds it. And part of me is like, what? Why would you? Are we just like, superficial? Like it felt like a Power Ranger episode.
Well, the reason it did, and that's a pretty accurate representation or comparison.
Yeah.
The reason why they do that though is because of that neural handshake that they have, because they feel all the pain going through it.
Here's the thing: they act like they do, but do they? Because realistically, if you felt like your entire chest get blown out, you would just black out immediately and not be useful anymore. So you might feel it, but I don't think it's a 1-to-1. Because it's not...
Alright, but you're not thinking anime logic.
Well, anime logic, lots of things, but I don't think they feel it as much as they...
Don't throw that away!
Okay, then that means Jake should have died in Japan then.
I mean...
He got busted in the dome.
Fuck you.
Okay, so look, I get the idea, but I think mostly what they're reacting to is the fact that they're strapped like directly to the robot. So if you punch the robot, they will feel the massive shock of the entire thing moving. This is like if you're in a car and your car gets hit by another vehicle. I've been in low speed crashes, but this is like 100-mile-an-hour crash that doesn't kill you, but whatever, anime logic for that. And you would feel a lot, and it would jostle you around a bunch, and that does cause a lot of damage to the pilots without them having to like feel the entire thing. Though I think they play fast and loose with it, you could probably argue that the fact that it is a neural link and a neural bridge, everything they do in the robot, yeah, it doesn't make sense because it's a giant machine, but you're linking a human to the machine, so everything they do, they would do in the robot, which is also why, because we surprisingly haven't had this discussion yet, the placement of a cockpit on a giant robot, it's placed in the chest in a lot of shows, or sometimes slightly lower, so lower than chest or stomach, but, and then in this one...
I see where you're going there.
Yeah, Jehuti. And then you place it higher in this, it's all in the head. That makes sense logically because you're tying a human to it. Humans will always, even with training, instinctively guard their head. That happens to be where the cockpit is, but that's also just what we do. So in a fight, even with a ton of training, when the adrenaline's pumping and they're going through all this stuff and the aggression and all that crap, they will naturally protect the head, which is where the cockpit is. So it makes sense to have it there. Yeah, it's exposed, but it then also opens up you to like jam a huge power source into the chest, not have to care about the human being there. And because of how they fight, they will naturally protect it, so you don't have to worry about, whoops, they forgot, oh yeah, I may control this giant robot, but I'm actually in the stomach, so if I don't protect the stomach, I die. I can lose my head because that's not actually me, I'm fine. So it's like you can
that
you can
makes
train them
sense.
to do that, and because it's a 1-to-1 on the movement, it works. Did they think that hard? Probably
So-
for the first movie.
You know what's funny about that? God, we're just, who else also does the side hold thing?
Yeah, but that makes
Obsidian
more sense.
Fury.
It does. Yeah.
Yeah, but what I mean is, so we don't want to skip ahead, but a part of me is like, yeah, even Obsidian does it. I don't mind it because, like I said, because you mentioned the whole head thing, it reminded me very Power Rangers, right? Because Gundam is usually in the chest or like right above the crotch
except for
area.
very few at certain points in the series where they will put it in the head, and that was actually a unique change for those units.
Yeah. So I kind of viewed it more as a Sentai thing, nod than anything else. But I do think it's kind of funny how like they do try to make the robots try to come across a bit more. They try to lean a bit more into human features, because if you noticed, with the exception of the chain ball hand, there are no freak robots. There are no 3-arm robots, 4-arm robots, 3-leg robots. It's all bipedal.
That's
know,
true.
They are all
We are man.
demi,
Go.
like demi-human. They're all demi-human in some way.
Yeah.
So, before
So-
we move on to that wonderful revelation that we're going to come across to, Obsidian Fury is battling Gypsy Avenger, and one of the things that it does is it jams all communications somehow, and Mako is trying to get some information sent over to the pilots, and like, hey, something's going on here, and once it spots Mako in the air, it launches a missile, and Gypsy Avenger just drops everything. They go rushing towards it, and they miss it by a fucking pin hair. It's so sad. So sad. And this is the fridging part that I was mentioning, because unfortunately Mako dies.
She goes from Mako Mori to Mako no Mori.
God damn it, Will. You deserve that, though. I'll give you that one.
I don't think you hear it, but I'm slow clapping.
I appreciate
Slow
that. I
clap.
really do. My brain had thought of something else earlier, and I'm like, no, this is even worse.
It was. That's wow.
You know, as messed up as it is, I would have preferred if the missile just hit, because you look at how Gypsy landed and how it tried to get her and where she landed. It didn't need to dive. It just could have just caught her lower. So that's why I said this is where I agree with you. It feels very much like she got fridged. By the way, for anyone who doesn't know, fridge is a term because the DC comic thing in which Kyle Rayner, I believe it was Rayner, I forget his last name, but Kyle is one of the really good Green Lanterns, gets tortured by some maniac asshole, I forget his name right off the top of my head. He comes home and his girlfriend is dead in the fridge, and that is how they thrust Kyle into that crossover arc to motivate him to get him to do stuff.
It also gets talked
didn't
about.
know the etymology of that.
No,
Holy
that's
crap.
where it's from. You didn't know that?
You didn't know
With
that?
all of the
Yeah.
pop culture you consume, that's also why when people talk about like Killing Joke, they fridged Barbara. And while she became Oracle, Barbara was in that wheelchair for almost a decade real time before they did anything with her character. They basically killed Batgirl without killing her, which is worse, and they just left her there in a wheelchair, absolutely doing nothing with it. Just so they could motivate Batman for one arc, and then they could motivate Commissioner Gordon for one arc, which is a totally separate conversation that I'd like to have with you, actually, Sean. But
okay.
If I remember correctly, too, like what made that really upsetting too is there was a crisis within those 10 years, and usually crises tend to undo a lot of the damage to get the characters back to certain points.
Yeah.
And she was left. They left her as is.
And they just left her.
So yeah, that's where fridging comes from, folks. And now Sean, because Sean didn't know.
So after she dies,
very
what
surprising.
happens next?
That.
A funeral we don't get to see happens.
Yeah, weirdly. Yeah, they usually.
Yeah, we don't get to press F to pay respects here. But I.
Shut up. Pacific Rim. Oh, sorry, it'd be the dollar sign, because we really hope this makes money.
On the grave of this character, please make money. But no, I'm not saying I don't remember the entire scene. I just my focus went on the immediate banter and then getting kind of interrupted of Jake trying to help out Amani with her because he's in his grief. He's walking around in civilian clothes, and he sees her. Apparently, there's a brain in the jar they all kind of hook up with to do drifting. Which, by the way, wow. Okay. Okay.
Hey, desperate times. Okay, they really needed to know. Well, I guess that was done during peacetime? I don't know.
Yeah.
That's real. That raises a lot of questions. Like, they did that during peacetime, so they technically didn't have to. And when a person dedicates their body to science, yeah, but did you know they were going to keep your brain alive? Like, how alive is it? Are they stuck in just a horrible state where they can't interact with anything, and they just occasionally, like, are they conscious? Like, how... Oh god, that raises so many questions. There's a really dark horror movie.
And not to mention, because of even like respectable pilots who have been doing it for a while, you get to see some images. What do the kids see when they jack into the brain? I was just...
Oh, would it just be residuals from all the other people who've done it? So just this chaotic mix of like 100 people's brain activity? And what about the brain? If the brain is still conscious and like has some form of sentience, what is it feeling as it's just bombarded occasionally
Pacific
with
Rim
entire
2,
like life stories?
thinking.
Oh my god.
Like, a part of me thinks the only reason why that brain is there is to have this moment of Jake needing a distraction. He gets one with being able to have a little bit of a bonding moment with Amani. And they just didn't want to have another person there for Jake to go, hey, fuck off, please.
Right.
Like, that's the only reason. That's me being very generous. Because yeah, the more you think about the brain in the jar that gets sent back up into the ceiling, the the darker it gets. So part of me is thinking like, oh well, some director or like the fifth writer, whoever the fuck, right? Because how many people worked on this? I don't know. Was like, well, we don't need someone there because we don't want Jake to be mean to send somebody away, and we don't want someone to be mean to Amani because she's having trouble drifting. But we need a brain. We need a person in the drift, and then someone went out. We only need a brain though, and then maybe that's what it is. I don't know.
So,
but
building off of that, after we do the little funeral process or whatever, it shifts over to Newt for a moment because he's basically like, "Hey, honey, I'm home. Had a weird day today. My boss almost died." He's talking to this person. You assume it's his wife because the person's name is what is it? Sarah? I think Alice. Sarah's the name of the brain. That's
Alice.
Right.
Because Alice in Wonderland.
He's talking, and there's no response back. And then a couple beats later, and all of a sudden you find out it's another kaiju brain all gussied up inside another tube that he just likes to, I guess, drift with on a daily and nightly basis. So that's when you know his kaiju grouping has gotten a little out of hand there.
Monster fucker.
Pretty much. Like, he definitely belongs on the hentai forums for anything involving that.
I mean, look, if they're going to keep making anime where everything becomes an anime waifu...
What no, not my brain foo.
No.
Not my kaiju brain.
So, Will, what was it that Mako was trying to send over?
So she was attempting to send them. She was slapping a tablet real hard as she then died. It was her last act was to try and send a file. And she sent part of it, but it was all scrambled, so they had to reconstitute it, which, not gonna lie, is actually pretty accurate to our world. You can take disparate, like a not complete version of data, and then you can kind of play with it using a bunch of algorithms and sort of reconstruct it, and then take a couple guesses and go from there. So she was sending over the signature, quote unquote, of the robot, and she said, "Oh, it's just the same as," and then she got cut off because, and they only showed it once. Obsidian Fury has along its spinal column, or what would be the spinal column on like a human, has these like flappy pad things, or like they look like little panels that come up and vibrate, and it exudes.
Yeah, that's what it used to
waves
cut off her
of energy.
Yeah.
It cut off all the communication, so that was why she couldn't send the file and why nobody could talk to each other as easily, because it was doing that to jam stuff. And when she sent over the thing, it was a signature. They go through a bunch of stuff to figure out what it is, and it turns out they thought it might have been a kaiju, but it wasn't. It was a location. Obsidian Fury's signature matched it matched an energy signature that she traced back to some decommissioned factory that during the war made power cores, which tells me that the power core inside it was probably made there. And for some reason, I guess if they're made different places, power cores have different signatures. Sci-fi logic. Anywho, she traced it, sent over the map, and they were like, "Oh, that's where it is." So they fly out there to go see what it is.
They also decided to go ahead and move forward with the drones. So go ahead.
Also, real quick though.
Yes.
Add to that, I think the reason why it triggered that memory in her is because the EMP thing that does with the flapping is similar to the kaiju in Pacific Rim 1 that did the exact same thing, because it was they had a flipper thing on their back as well, because that's one of the first thing that Gypsy does, rips a few of them off just to hurt them in the first movie.
It's totally analog.
Yeah, it does it so that they can have communication together.
Analog.
Just like a watch.
It's nuclear.
Just like a watch.
Also, too, that's a pretty consistent sci-fi trope, by the way, where it's like tracing back signatures and medals to certain locations, and that hasn't been done in real life because we don't really do that kind of stuff. But we do things like, but we have technically done that with bombs. When the bomb lands, it goes off, and there's very little pieces left over, based on what the explosion material is. We go, well, these people tend to make bombs with that kind of material, so there's something there.
Yeah, it is. So it's the reason I find it odd is because they're identifying the power signature of the engine and tying it to a very specific plant that would have made it. I assume, because they don't actually say any of that out loud.
Yeah, true. That's the problem, right? It's not explicitly said. Yeah.
Nope, none of that said. They just kind of go, well, she traced it. Traced what?
Just go with it.
and then you're like, oh, okay, it's essentially just go with it. A lot of the minutia in the movie is very go with it, but I'm okay because this is such a fun movie to do that.
What's that fun scene I'm trying to lead you into?
It earns it.
Obsidian Fury.
They go out, they land into the thing, and then Obsidian Fury has 2 flaming chainsaws, and they fight it, and they have a moment where the 2 of them get to look at each other and go, hey, let's do the thing. Do you remember the thing?
I remember. Do you remember?
And,
I will say, they use that area very well. Like going back to the whole thing of what I said earlier, where they tend to these robots are way more durable. So like you get to see them actually like think away how to solve problems, because like
because they can't just punch it and it dies.
I took a punch, my arm's gone, right? Instead it's like, oh wait, I'm getting forced into the I got to get the fuck out of here. We need to regroup and get some space. Dives in the water, takes Obsidian Fury out with him a little bit with those little mini homing bomb things, and it kind of resets the fight. Yeah, like
it resets the fight so that they're no longer on the back foot. And that's a give and take. That's actually a really
that whole area is really great because it reminds me of my problem with Pacific 1 being solved here, but secondly allowing the pilots to actually display that they actually know shit.
Have more maneuverability.
Because it's kind of like you because you hear about how great these pilots are, number one, but like their bots can't handle the damage.
No.
Like so it's like
no. And they also can't handle what they want them to do. Like, they make a point of saying Eureka was the first one that was that fast and that maneuverable, aka none of the other ones are. Gypsy, in most of its fights, looks like a clunky robot, and that was on purpose. That was an artistic choice. But it looks clunky. Like, the pilots can do all that crazy stuff, but that thing fights like a drunk old man.
Tanker fight.
But even then, right? Like they he gets hit with a few missiles. It jumps out of the way. It gets thrown through a wall. It does a fight reset, and then it has its little stance duel where essentially gets a little slash counter hit with its individual blade. Like I like how their durability allows them to really kind of like play with the scene more.
That actually reminds me. Just to cut back to the original fight real quick, the first one. When they're doing the fight in the city, you remember how in the first Pacific Rim, how they did those cutaway shots where you can actually see what's going on inside of the buildings? They do that in this one too, except this time there's actually people inside of them, so you actually see like when a chainsword is going through the building.
Oh yeah, we glossed over that. Let's just put this out there: a lot of collateral dead people in this movie. There are a lot of dead people in this movie. I'm honestly impressed that the Defense Corps doesn't get like the last 5 minutes of the movie aren't them getting screamed at by the higher ups, going, "You handled that fight terribly." Number one, when a fight like that breaks out, you're supposed to grab the threat, throw it in the ocean and go fight it out there while we try and evacuate the city. It was the middle of people gathering for an event. What is wrong with you? And it's like, none of that happens. Like at one point they punch Obsidian Fury and it throws its arms out to stop itself, which logically makes sense, but when it did that, a lot of people die. Oh, a lot of people do. Also, it reminded me of one of the most horrifying ways to die in the modern day. You know how buildings are made of glass?
Yeah.
If the side of that building like breaks, it breaks off into massive jagged chunks of glass. So now a rain of that just falls on people.
Yep.
That sounds
Absolutely.
horrifying. And some of those chunks of glass are massive, like several feet across. And that just
it
sounds
looks cool
awful.
for a movie, but
The best
like, when
case
you
would
see
be it kills
like,
you.
on a personal level, you're like, oh fuck.
Oh my god. That would be horrible.
Like, I want to live in
That
an
would be
age
terrible.
where we get to see these giant robots do cool shit. But then when you think about it, it's like, oh man, no, I don't. Because think about it, everything will be awful.
Yeah, it's like the argument, why does anybody live in New York in Marvel? No, seriously, why does anyone live in New York in Marvel? Who voluntarily does
Right.
that?
Exactly. So jumping back to this current fight, so they end up duking it out a bunch, and it's got some really awesome fight scenes, and then they do their little power move where they slide underneath and they slice him in the on his gut. I think's what it was.
Slice him in a little
Yeah.
tum tum, you know.
And so it knocks
Yep,
him
his,
out.
his tum tum.
And,
Good description.
so they get up, they run over, and they, I think they headbutt him at one point, and then they manage to actually knock out his, like, they punch out the power core, and then they,
Yeah, 'cause
it was.
Oh, that was
I like,
that
this
was
is-
fucking
this
cool.
is,
Yeah.
This is anime. This is anime. And then
that part was really
he's
cool.
like, come out of your pilot right now, get the hell out. And they just walk over and they crunch the fucking cockpit and
Faceplate.
rip it off. And what do they find? A kaiju brain. So
Mm-hmm.
that's where it's like, oh, kaiju brain, interesting. I wonder who did this. I have no idea. Newt.
No, don't be silly. I'm American. It was clearly the Chinese.
Oh man, don't tell me that's part of the plot. It is.
speak.
Actually, the funny part is it wasn't the Chinese.
Yeah.
It was Newt.
Yeah, like because I mentioned the whole thing about like how could you find out they're from that location base, whatever, based on the signature. Because right after this scene, we get to see the cadets after they're all after Obsidian Fury gets dragged back to the base, and they're all like, "Holy shit, you did it!" Right? You get to find out that there are some very company-based secrets out there of how they do certain things, and apparently how they sheath their wiring is pretty unique, and only Amara knows because she's been junking things and reusing them, and it's a Shaw Industries way of cabling their stuff and putting protective sheaths on it that makes everyone point their fingers back at the company.
14-year-old.
Not at. Yeah. She's actually no.
She's actually 21. Excuse you, sir. She's a
We are not
500-year-old
doing that.
vampire.
Fuck
Oh, my
off.
bad.
But no, it's. I like the investigation part of all that. Where you have to have the one kid be like, guys, we shouldn't be here. Chinkies.
Oh yeah, the one who says that my dad plays with boobs or whatever. It's because he's a plastic surgeon.
His father's a plastic surgeon. Yeah. Yeah, that guy has
Yeah.
he got it rough, man. I don't know why he's in the military. He's like, you're gonna go fight kaiju. You sure? He seems a little timid to be on the front line
So
punching a
after
monster in the
that,
face.
they basically decide that like she's in trouble at that point, right?
Yeah, she was gonna get pushed out of the military, even though they were going to do that even after she gives them the most important information they're ever gonna have.
Well, okay, we are glossing over one thing. We haven't said why she was in
because
trouble.
she infiltrated some thing that she wasn't supposed to be a part of. That's all.
No, it's because one of them almost got his arm melted
that's
off.
semantics.
That's the reason they were mad. Okay. So you find out the inside of the giant robot has the sheathing. We also find out that it's not just the cockpit is kaiju. Basically, the entire robot is
Kaiju
blanketed and synthetic kaiju stuff. Like it's squishy in there. And we know from the first movie, but it's been 10 years and these children were all even younger when that war ended. We know that the inside of a kaiju is incredibly toxic and really bad for you. None of them think it is because they'd never been inside a giant monster before. So she convinces them to go inside. Granted, they thought it was just a robot. They go in. Hey, there's all this like gooey, juicy, kaiju-y looking stuff everywhere. So she starts cutting into a wire. The wire is filled with like kaiju blood, so some of it drips out onto a dude's arm who's been nothing but nice. That's what you get for being nice. And his arm starts smoking, and then it hurts real bad. So then she gets in trouble, rightly so, because they could have all died in there or been horribly maimed. So, and then she tells them, "Oh, this is a she thing. You should look at that company." And it's like, that makes sense. They've done a pretty good job of setting up that company as the bad guys.
Like whole 30 minutes, all feel like it happens like within 5 minutes. It goes by so quickly.
Yeah, no, I agree. I'm kind of the same way with that.
So it does the whole thing where Shao Industries is launching the drones, and as they're being flown in from the helicopters, they're all going towards the Chinese base that they're all at. And as soon as they're being flown in, the drones start malfunctioning. Like, they're like, oh, what's going on here? Like, the guys who are actually in the suits, which I thought was interesting, and for some reason I thought it was Patrick Warburton, but I know I'm wrong. I know.
Oh,
I know
no,
I'm
that
wrong.
wasn't him.
It's this guy who's just in a suit who's like being suspended from wire, it looks like. And as he's trying to pilot the drone, all of a sudden the drones start just become janky and they start moving on their own. And
yeah, I'm going to be honest, that looks like it really sucked because he was drifted with the robot and then it starts feedbacking and overriding, and I'm just going to assume his brain fried and he's either a vegetable
that's why Bill from,
or dead.
Accounting is no longer with us.
That's pretty much why. Ugh.
So from here is,
nasty.
like I said, it's the part that I gushed all about. It's when the drones become kaijuized and they manage to fully go berserk and they start causing havoc everywhere. And they're not only just at this base, apparently they're all across like different areas throughout the world too.
Well, they were sent to every dome because that was the whole point of the program, was to have they could just activate. That's the point of the drone. You have like 12 pilots and you just pick which drone you want to turn on, and immediately you're at the problem because you've got all these drones across the world.
What was funny for this particular scene is that you've got drones that are causing havoc over in the Chinese base, and then all the other ones that you can see that aren't here, they're in different spots. I say this is funny, but I'm coming back to it. There's spots where they basically say, hang on one second, somebody just sent me something. Oh, okay, whatever, I don't care. Sorry, I got distracted. So basically all these other drones, they end up going out to different spots in the ocean and they start creating their own breaches using their core reactors to actually start blasting something open. And you find out in the middle of all this that Newt is the one who's actually responsible for it. He's like the entire brains behind this, so to speak. And it's because he's been mind melding with that kaiju brain that he had, and basically every time he does it, he keeps getting that feedback from them, and they're basically integrating the hive mind process with him. So now he's basically feeling like he's part kaiju as well. He's like part precursor. Now, looping back to what I was saying about what's funny is that when you see all the rubble come down, the only people who were hurt were the original pilots who were scheduled to go inside those giant Jaegers. And you only see like one or two people who are like underneath rubble, and they are like completely paralyzed at this point, or they're dead.
Well, yeah. Oh, two of them
that
get
was okay.
stepped on.
That must have been a trailer moment. I don't know if it was, but there's this really cool slowdown shot where one of the I think it might have been in Bracer Phoenix. Yeah, Bracer Phoenix.
Phoenix.
It ends up firing off a volley at one of the drones. It turns around, like, "Oh, you bitch!" and it jumps up, so slow, and it slams down on its head and crushes the pilot. I'm like, oh, they didn't have to do, they did that.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, who wants to take over for this one?
Oh my god, my brain just shut off. Like,
It's all right. So basically, Gottlieb comes in with Shao, and they drive off New.
Oh yes. So I gotta say, man, I thought they were going to lean into maybe trying to like engage with Newt a bit more often from that point forward. Boy, if Shao was not interrupted by this man with the cane.
Oh yeah, she 100% was gonna dome
Oh
him.
man, she would have.
Call her it would have been a much shorter movie.
Call her the problem solver, because that, you know what I mean?
Oh yeah, she's like, he looks at it, she goes, "Oh, I know how to fix this with a gun."
Yeah.
You sure you're not American?
Hey.
Damn.
Look out!
She is honestly one of my
awesome.
favorite characters.
Look out, guy with this gun that I found.
But yeah, she's awesome. I believe she ends up taking down she takes down all the drones except one, and I will get to that at the very end of this review here. She takes down all the drones but one of them. And all the ones that were actually like doing the whole chest bursting or core exposure to the breaches, they were actually bringing in different kaiju. I think one of them ended up dying coming through, but 3 of them still managed to come through.
That one didn't just die. He was torn apart.
Yeah.
He got ripped in half because the portal shut, and that's how that works. But not only that, when the robots fell over, they were still shooting that laser. A couple of the lasers went through him and like sliced his head.
And you see him coming
it was pretty
through
gruesome
the breach,
for him.
and he was like,
"I
live, I don't live."
Nope.
Oh man.
Oh,
Yeah,
boy.
no, that kaiju got it. That
was very dead. That one was very dead.
My favorite line reading comes up next. It's when they're all sitting at the base, and they're all taking care of all the wounded, and then one of the cadets looks up and goes like, "We got incoming!" It's just the way that he does it. It's just like he's looking down, he looks up suddenly. It's not like he heard anything. He just looked up and he saw, and then he just screams at the top of his lungs. It's like, oh my god.
Oh, did you like, speaking of reads, did you guys like when the Marshal was screaming as the spiral missiles blew up in his face? I don't know, that was,
it was
interesting.
A choice. It was definitely a choice.
Yeah.
I mean, it's that whole scene with the drones attacking, like you mentioned before, with the real life Ava. This is the closest we're gonna get. God, was that horrifying in a really weird way. Just like, I was not expecting the amount of pointy spikes to be coming through.
God.
But they did. And then now, of course, because we have to have the drama, cue the paper mache Jaegers.
Mega Kaiju body horror.
Right.
Oh man.
I was kind of surprised how flimsy the Jaegers became, because we must accelerate the plot.
Yeah, they do have a very much a, oh no, we forgot to activate plot armor for this moment. All of a sudden they die now.
Before we go into that very silly montage, there's the part where they're trying to figure out how to take care of these 3 new kaiju that just showed up. And these kaiju names are Hakuja, Strikethorn, and Raijin, alright? And they're all deciding that they need to go towards Tokyo. Reason why is because they found out that based off of data from the past 10 years of kaiju attacking, they were all basically going towards Tokyo, and they wanted to know why. Well, it turns out Mount Fuji is rich with rare earth metals. Who'd have thought, right? Exactly.
And it's an active volcano.
So they're like, oh man, what would happen if that happens? Well, apparently if they do that, it would actually release volcanic matter into the atmosphere, wiping out all life on Earth, and basically terraforming the planet for precursors to basically come over and say, haha, we won, bitches. So yeah, that's the whole reason, at least according to this particular movie, as to why they want to do that. So when they decide as to how they're going to formulate the plan as to get everything ready before they go into that wonderful montage, they ask Gottlieb, hey, so what about your theory about your jet fuel? What can you do with that? Like, do you think that's gonna work? He's like, well, it means in theory it'll work. He's like, well, what does that mean? Is it a yes or a no? Today, it means... And he waits like 5 seconds. Looks at the screen. Yes! Like, fucking why?
They had to have a little fun with it, They had to figure it out.
But then we get the montage. My god, this montage. I would have been okay with it if they hadn't done the very last beat.
Oh, the last beat's great. It's just two people looking at a tablet and talking to each other, and they're not even like center frame. It's not close. They're like a good 15 feet away from the camera, and it's just that. It's just two people pointing at a screen and talking with no words because it's a music only montage.
Yeah, and I'm like, why?
I love that beat.
Like, we got everything else that made sense, but then we focus on that for like 10 seconds. I'm like, this is too long. We got to stop. And then they finally do, but it's like, come on. Will, what happened next?
So one of the robots gets a new arm because, the other one was paper mache and it died. So they gussy up all the robots that they can. They wind up with 4 instead of just 1. Apparently, literally every other robot on the planet is dead. We're just not going to talk about them. They no longer exist. They did mention, at least offhandedly, that someone tried to stop it, but because of the drone attack, everyone else is taken out. So the drone attack was... probably. It was really, really successful everywhere, including the base that we follow. The base that we follow just happened to get a little lucky in that Gypsy Avenger was fine, and that Amara was there because apparently she's better than all of the people who have built these robots over the last 10 years and worked on them for the last 10 years, or 20, because we were involved in a war with them. So she shows them how to incorporate stuff. And then helping on top of that is the lady who they did a really good job of coding as a villain, including making her giant corporate building basically look like a bad guy. It's red and black, and you only see it at night, so it just super villain.
That sounds like the First Order. Thank you, Star
Wars. They did a real good job of making her look, except actually intimidating. But they make her, very, very coded as bad guy, and then it's like, oh no, she's just really harsh because, she runs a massive company and she's really under a lot of stress, so that's how she chooses to keep everything moving, keep it going. She's not touchy-feely, all, unicorns and rainbows. She tells people what to do, and she's very intimidating because she has to get it done. And then they show her now with none of that pressure, and she's basically just a happy-go-lucky scientist who's apparently really intelligent and really good at what she does.
She's still stressed as fuck.
Yeah, but like stressed in a normal way, not like stressed in a I'm gonna scream at everyone way. So like she's under pressure, but she knows what she's doing. So she's retrofitting something that will come up later in the background, but they do show it. So they show her standing next to it. It technically counts as foreshadowing. And then she helped them because she flew in a shit ton of her workers, her supplies, a bunch of her helicopter-y hover ship things, and so she just basically dumped all of her resources into their base, and between her and everybody else on the base, they're able to scrounge together their 4 units, and they do Newt's giant rocket thing, which is definitely safe and definitely won't result in anyone dying. Yeah, him.
You're getting them scientists all confused.
You're turning into me. Don't do that.
Oh, I'm sorry.
You can't turn into me. I'm me.
Are you sure?
We're not
Maybe.
getting into existentialism here.
Okay.
So yeah, but then they launch, and when they launch, it's actually kind of funny because they do it where they have all the different cadets. You can see them launching in each suit individually, and then
Yes.
I think it's the one where he's the son of the plastic surgeon with the.
Plastic surgeon.
I think he's Bulgarian, could be Russian.
I don't know. I don't remember what country he was supposed to be from, but definitely not
Right.
like America.
And as
Not
he's
here.
launching, he's got on la 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 as his like launching theme.
Well, he puts it on because, as he put it, his grandmother played it for him, and it keeps him calm.
Not calm, man. Not calm.
It's just such a weird,
It is.
weird moment. I feel like I missed whatever that was supposed to be a reference
So
to.
that was a meme around like a year or two. It would have been a meme in production when the movie was being made, in which
Holy shit! Really?
in which basically people just discovered that song out of nowhere, and it was like, wait a minute, why is this guy just like troll face laughing during this song, almost like not true troll face laughing, but like pretty similar. It was around this time when when that song kind of came up out of nowhere, and it was kind of like a joke for a while, and
Okay, so it was just a nod to pop culture at the time.
yeah, it was like I said, it was roughly like it would have been during production where that song just came out of nowhere and people were like laughing at it again and being like, "What the fuck?"
That's kind of cool.
But the interesting thing that I actually really like here is we get to see the implementation of the new and improved bunkers in Tokyo. I don't know if you guys got to see the.
Oh.
Yeah. So I love how you were like, "This is a really bad way to die." Like, I'm surprised no one talked about that because for me, all of that was overridden by Japan
Yep.
and their bunker scene.
Oh yeah,
Oh.
those people
They
got
got
stepped
stepped on. They got busted out.
So-
oh my god.
Speaking of foreshadowing, I just realized we forgot another foreshadowing moment of Amara as a kid, and her,
Oh, yeah, I
when,
forgot.
Oh,
and
yeah.
when she's like on the pier, and they're like, "I'll catch you, I'll jump," right? Which the line
And
gets
the-
used
and
later. But then
Mhm.
flattened, they get stepped on. I'm just like,
Yeah.
oh Jesus, like you know what? She has a reason to be a little like rebel against the system. Fuck, I don't need anybody
Mhm.
because
She ain't got no family.
like you could could argue getting watching your parents maybe get hit in an explosion, that's bad. I'm not saying there's a good way to lose a parent or a family. However, if I could choose a way not to, it would be getting stepped on in front of me within 15 feet by a giant kaiju. That might be
Mhm.
top 5 ways of don't go out that way.
Oh, and on top of that, that was when it first breached water, so it proceeded to then attack the city. So, the place where you grew up is now a hellscape, and oh yeah, everyone in your family is dead.
Yep, and she has
Immediate family.
front row seats that just watched her town burn
Yeah,
down.
but at least
Yep.
she wasn't being
Yep.
chased by a kaiju, specifically. Like, as an active target.
Michael
Oh
Myers.
yeah, no, that yeah, the Michael Myers moment from the first movie.
God.
At least, like, don't get me wrong, that is nightmare fuel, but that is at least a personal nightmare fuel, right? That is like,
Oh, you
don't get me wrong, both people are helpless in this scenario,
Mhm.
right? But
they're also both little kids.
and they're both little kids. I do think, however, the girl is worse because at least
Amara.
Amara is worse because, man, not only do you get to see your parents get stepped on, but remember her position. She is on the other end of the pier, cut off from the city. So she's quite literally having to just sit there and watch everyone die. She has no other choice. She's stuck there, which is like, god damn, that is.
You think at any point she would have been like,
Oof.
oh, it's far now, and then she hears screaming, she goes, ooh, and then stops screaming, ooh.
It just
Pretty
turns.
much.
It just turns into a Family Guy bit.
Hmm.
It's just,
Yeah, she's crying and screaming, and then she kind of starts sobbing, and then it slows down, and then you hear an explosion go off, and her eyes go wide, and then she starts screaming
God.
again.
I don't want to visualize that, but that's mean.
But yeah, you know what's funny? That scene, I don't think like oh, people dying hot, but like the it's kind of weird. I mentioned before earlier the Tim Burton Dutch angle with the montage way early in this podcast, which is like hours ago at this point. Another funny thing, I don't know about you guys, because the way how it gets brighter in Tokyo compared to the other scenes, you could argue, oh, it's just daytime. When the monster's foot fell and crushed all them, did anyone get like Starship Troopers vibes?
A little bit, yeah.
Like I saw that.
I could see that.
I'm like, are we about to get? The only reason why I feel this way is because I was debating getting into a game called Helldivers, which is basically the Starship Troopers game, right? And
Essentially.
And I see Joel, screaming no when aliens come and kill their family or whatever, and all that stuff. And a part of me is like, man, that kind of whenever I see really bright, like out of nowhere kind of city, and it's a bit more colorful, like my Jade itself is like, they're about to get killed now, like, because the Starship Troopers like stylistic stuff is coming through a little bit more now. I feel like we're gonna see more of that in the future.
I definitely think so too, and I think with the way how certain monster movies have come across recently, I think we're gonna be getting a lot more along those lines, and I hope so.
Yeah.
You think there's going to be more monster movies? We'll talk about that at the end.
I do. So, now, the one thing that I wanted to mention about the bunkers, did you notice how they were basically being screwed in, kind of like the different things that we see in Evangelion, how they were basically like different city pieces that actually screw into the main portions of the city, like as soon as they latch it up? I just thought that was cool.
The city goes, the entire city in Ava goes underground as a means of protection. No, we're not going to talk about how would an entire building be suspended from what constitutes like a 5-foot wide bracket. No, we're not going to talk about that. But the way that they do it is they literally have everybody go into giant buildings, and then they sink the buildings, and that keeps the buildings from getting smashed by the angel. It's kind of like that in this movie, though they never show us what it looks like on the inside, so we don't
No, we
really
just see
know.
all the people getting busted out instead and then dying right after.
Yup.
Oh, man.
And then one of them crawled underground, so that probably crushed a few of those underground bunkers. So, new horror
So,
unlocked.
David, take us away with this 3 kaiju fight here.
So, we've said it before multiple times, at least I have, Sentai, Power Rangers, etc. This is where we get truly Power Rangery, right? We get the separation. Hey, you go here, we go there, fight. Did they make one of the two? I might have been getting the orders confused. It was Gypsy Danger going after the Category 5 Raijin with the girl and her squad of 3 with the ball.
Racer Phoenix. Yep.
Yeah. And so they just wanted the other 2 kids to go 1v1 with their monsters. It worked out pretty well.
Almost.
Right? In the beginning it worked pretty well. Obviously, keywords beginning.
Things happen.
Things escalate, as we can say here in the biz. But I do love how the opening gambit, your leader, your strong, hot John Boyega, and then I always forget his name, Nate.
Scott Eastwood
goes in.
Just called man.
Haircut. And he goes in.
God.
He goes in for a punch and then gets cartoonishly sent flying.
Oh man.
Oh yeah.
Hence why I said the durability of these robots. I love how they've been increased because we get to see not just how smart these pilots can be, but we get to see some funny shit. And this is where we've now hit funny shit territory.
Well, at one point, we
100%.
legit see one of the Jaegers
100%.
flick off. Like
Oh,
one
yeah.
of the kaiju that just buried away.
Flips off the kaiju that burrowed into the ground.
So yeah, no, I like this monster design. Sadly, I did not care for the 2 smaller ones, which is fine because I feel like all the effort went into Raijin. Maybe that's his name.
I think so, yeah.
The one with the face.
Yeah, one with the face where it redirects the kinetic energy
Yeah.
back at you.
Mhm.
It felt like all the thought and energy went into that one, which holds true even later on because its facial design is the most prominent later on in the movie.
In this 45-minute fight scene.
Yeah,
which
but
is
this
half
is
the film.
long. This is way longer than I
Mhm.
thought it was going to be. Even the fight with Obsidian Fury was even a little bit longer than I thought it was going to be too. Just thinking about the first movie, which I think was more so. I think the direction, the director and the producers were like, "Hey, get settled into longer fights for this one. We know what you want." Hence why I said this movie felt like it was made by people who were fans of the
Right.
first one, more so
Mhm.
than that, because
Mhm.
you have memes in there, you have longer fight scenes, you have more durable robots. Clearly, this is people yelled at us because they wanted more fights. We're just going to make more fights
yeah.
now.
Mm.
And we did get
But
more
all
fights.
all the Jaegers are are even though I made fun of them earlier with the we're just men in metal now, bipedal, right? We just
Mhm.
go. Um, they all have at least unique enough weapons to where I feel like if Pacific Rim was allowed to exist again, you could have some interesting. Like it's almost like they were afraid to go full Gundam because which again you see the Gundam statue later on, a little bit of a nod, to where you can't have unique two-legged robots exist in the world. I feel like maybe Pacific Rim was trying to play a little bit safer, but maybe if they continue on, we would see more interesting designs going forward. But they managed to get a little bit out of what they got, right? You had your quick two sword user that turned into kind of a pseudo claymore later.
Mhm.
You had your electro whip, which was a little bit disappointing because I really they could have been used a bit more, but of course
They got wrecked.
They get wrecked. They get wrecked pretty
do
badly.
real hard.
I think the weakest design was sadly the one Amara was in. I'm not a fan
Oh
of
yeah, that gets like
ball launching
split in half almost instantly.
Oh, it gets ripped apart.
Yeah.
It gets lifted
Yeah.
up by the mouth, and then it literally uses its other arms to rip off the arms and the legs, and then bite it in half. That thing gets shredded.
Yeah.
But even though I'm not a fan of the ball design, interesting design for the center
Oh,
chest where
with
the
the
guns
pivoting
go
guns,
That was
forward
really
yeah.
so.
and then swing back. But unfortunately, those guns don't do dick.
I mean, it gives
No,
gives you
because
an
these are
angry
Cat
little
4.
child who wants to just keep shooting. So that's all that we got.
Based off
Yeah,
a
I
few
wish-
people
yeah.
I've heard from the military, that's legitimately how it feels to fire guns that big. Like the stuff mounted to a C-130, that's what it feels like. So,
No, I have to imagine, yeah.
100% real, true to life.
But no, I wish those guns were just a bit more effective because I like the design of utilizing that centerpiece because it reminded me of the joke we had in our first podcast, which is why is there a gaping hole down the center of the Jaeger that just exists to eat feet? If you were to step wrong.
It just eats people.
And then once again, because this movie was made by people who were fans of the first one, they were just like, oh, well, what if we remove that from all the Jaegers, but instead we keep it for one, and it turns into a Star Wars-esque, Luke get in the pod to shoot your enemies in the fucking thing, right?
So that did let them do another trope, which is one of our pilots will put their hands on their lap and their entire chair will sink down into a secondary cockpit. Because that is so giant robot
It
trope.
really was.
But there's a part of me that was like, I am totally fine with this movie dedicating 3 to 4 seconds of screen time to the chair going down an elevator. I'm okay with
Yeah,
that.
I was. It made me happy.
I also agree that I don't like the
Yeah.
giant spiked ball. I think it's kind of stupid, but that's because it's not part of Bracer Phoenix's original design. It's the tack on from the other robot, the two guys who got stepped on or whatever. It's a tack on from
True.
that thing. Bracer Phoenix was designed around munitions. I think Bracer was so the two guys who got stepped on. They were in Bracer Phoenix, so I think the whole head also got swapped out because when it headshots that kaiju, it uses two guns mounted in its hand to like point blank blow off its head. And Bracer Phoenix is a big, bulky, bruisery robot based around like walking artillery. That kind of feels like the main design scope.
So what you're saying is it's a bulky or heavy arms.
Yeah, essentially.
Yeah.
No flipping
Yeah.
through the fucking air for that thing.
But besides my prejudice against but yeah, essentially mace ball like weapons. 'Cause
You
I
don't
don't
like
enjoy
flails?
them.
Really? You have a
I don't
you
like
have a,
flails.
you don't like flails? It's a personal thing.
You know what's funny? I'm playing Terraria with my wife, and I was like, oh, I finally got I got a weapon from my chest. I tried to play a little bit more scavenging in the beginning instead of fast tracking to where all the strong shit is, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because I know where all the strong shit is. But I'm like, I'm gonna try to live off the chest for a bit, see how that's how I like to play. And then my strongest weapon that I got was was a flail, and the damage numbers compared to what I had was like 40 times higher. But then I had to use a flail, which is fucking awful. And then because it doesn't work very well. I don't like it. You have to swing it, then you eat it, and then it's not great. And in other games I play Elden Ring, Dark Souls, and flails. I'm not really a fan of the flails there. The mace is okay. Not a fan of the flails. Yes, I'm a little bit prejudiced. I'm not a fan of the flail, the swinging ball.
What about
I'm gonna have that as a
balls on
quote. I'm gonna
chains
put like a
that
random
bother
picture, and
you?
I'm gonna have you as a quote on there. It goes like, "I'm not a fan of the flail."
I'm not a fan. You know what's funny? This is a random fan flashback. The anime Bleach manga too, right? I read the manga, but this is when I was watching the anime, and Ichigo shows up and tries to save Rukia, and the three vice captains are in the way, and the fat guy he summons his Zamato. It's the ball. Ichigo throws it and punches it, and then breaks it, and then punches that fat guy in the face. I'm like, good. Don't bring a flail to a sword fight, loser.
You're so mad at flail. Where did the flail touch you, and at what point?
It touched me by making me think it could help me in Dark Souls, and it didn't.
Ooh.
And so I had to get rid of it. And now my prejudice.
That was a deep betrayal, I see.
Yeah, it was a betrayal. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You just stick with the big great sword or magic, and you go about your day.
Man.
So
we'll take it home with me.
Anyways.
Or take it home.
Take me home.
Will take me home.
Will take me home.
I mean,
take me home, bro. Take me home to what happens to the three kaiju.
So, we have all seen giant monster movies. We're all familiar with small, like, electric insecty things that skitter and chitter. And so Newt pops up out of nowhere, and he's like, "All right, I can be the villain now." And
no.
he
His first
summons...
words are, "Oh, okay, so we're gonna go ahead and do the giant robot thing. That's cool. Yeah, all right. How original."
Yeah, just sounding like all the critics of this movie, and it's real biting commentary. And so he summons from one of her automated factories. He apparently had the factory not only produce, kaiju robots without telling anyone, he had it produce little like Mite, those mites that came off the kaiju. He essentially made giant versions of those, and he sends them into the city in a wave, and I feel like he honestly could have just ended the fight there, because they literally have no defense against them.
No, they did not know what to do.
He could have... Well, think of it this way. Imagine, like, 100 rats swarming you. What is your defense there? You're not going to fist fight them off if they're all controlled by a machine telling them to kill you. You're probably just going to die.
Suicide Squad? The one with Ratcatcher 2?
Oh, yeah. Best character in that movie. Anywho, yes. He sends them, like, with his little iPad of doom, he controls them around the city and has them go munch on the kaiju and chop them apart, which did make me think, do kaiju feel pain?
I don't think they do. I think they can issue death knells when they're about ready to die, but I don't think they feel pain. I think they know when they're in danger, but I think that's about it.
I think they have a sensation of touch, but I don't think they were built with pain receptors, or at least they were built with, like, the lowest possible settings, just so they know, oh, I'm in danger, or oh, I'm being attacked. Otherwise, they would literally just walk around like an idiot, and you could potshot them and win.
With that being said, if you remember the first movie, when Gypsy ends up taking the giant boxes, the shipping containers, and just smashes the one over on the dock in the face on both sides, and it's stunned for like a minute before it roars back.
Yep. It was mostly just mad.
Yeah.
So it starts chopping them up and turning them into a super kaiju, and just as DBZ taught us all, you don't interrupt the bad guy when they're powering up. You don't do that. It's inconsiderate. You shut up, you stand there, and you let them have their moment. Seriously.
Honestly, if you interrupt them, you're kind of an
Exactly.
asshole. Honestly, like,
It's called respect.
come on.
It is. It's called respect, and we have it thanks to things like DBZ. It taught us well. So just like in that, they stand around gawking at the now more giant kaiju that is
Mega
bigger.
Kaiju.
It's essentially a mega. They don't even give it a category because it's so big that now the Jaegers are half its height, and it's not even rearing back. It's walking on like 8 legs or 6, and it's so huge that they come up to like halfway up the lake, maybe 2/3 up the lake. They even come up to its face. It has to like lean down to get to them.
Mm-hmm.
So this thing is just absolutely gargantuan, even by their standards of being a giant robot. And it then proceeds to just absolutely Shrek them. They are totally outclassed, and one of them winds up no longer surviving. We get Smoking Hand, and he no live.
Smoking Hand.
It was.
Yeah, he managed. It was the nerd. It was the nervous kid from the
The one who definitely should have. The one who should have just worked on boobs. He really should have. He would have lived longer.
Yeah. He got flattened somehow. That cockpit
that cockpit
must
got
have
fucking
been annihilated.
Yeah, because the other dude was half
Why am I
buried
laughing at that?
under
That's
rubble. Yeah, I don't know why you sound very happy about this. What is wrong with you?
Go
But
on.
so he dies, and I will say that I like that they all get knocked back, and the only one who rights themselves like midair and lands on their feet is these 2 guys who had the arc whip. And then they, instead of stopping, waiting for all the other 3 to get up so that they can all attack
Saber.
at once,
Yeah.
they are literal children. They are still kids. They are cadets. They are not well-trained professional soldiers. And the tactical decision of, I'm going to run in on my own and probably get killed, is stupid. And nobody would do that unless they were a dumb child who isn't fully done with their training and is just filled with hormones and has never been in real combat. So,
My bad, not
very
Saber,
realistic.
Guardian Bravo.
It was, yeah, Guardian. It was Guardian Bravo, and that one sprints in, hits the kaiju once with the whip. The kaiju then proceeds to grab the whip, and it ring around the rosies the shit out of him and throws them through like 5 buildings after smashing them through 4 as it spun in a circle.
Before we go on to that, there's one thing I wanted to touch on. So obviously, there's a lot of damage here, right?
Oh yeah,
So
that
you
city
would
gets
think that
flattened.
You would think that most of it's from the kaiju, right?
Oh,
Wrong.
no.
Some of it's actually from the Jaegers, just from deploying and running. Saber Athena is running out, and she has her daggers out, and she's doing the exact same thing that Obsidian Fury did by just having its blades out and running across the buildings. I'm like, you're just causing massive property damage just because the fuck of it.
Oh,
what the fuck?
I mean, if you want to go down that road, gentlemen, did either of you get a kill count for buildings when Gypsy was throwing them, just knocking them over?
Yeah. There was 4 buildings, and I'm like, ooh, that's $2 billion. That's $3 billion. That's another. And it goes, and whoever's in there, they're mega
Well,
gone.
granted, they did say
If
right
anyone's-
before this fight started, they said the words, everyone has evacuated to this whatever's, you are cleared for combat. So they at least said, you're clear for combat. So that's why they were able to just run wild.
Thing because they don't want to do another Superman Man of Steel.
But anywho, so that happens, and now there's a giant kaiju because they have fused, and their final form is unnamed. Did
Mega
either
Kaiju.
of you? Does it have a name? Like, is it a unique name?
I think its official name might be Mega Kaiju because you get to see Newt's tablet for a few seconds, and it says Mega Kaiju.
Oh, so
on
yeah,
it.
that would make sense then. The official movie name for it is
even-
basically just Mega Kaiju.
Yeah.
So unless someone gave it a name on the on the Jaeger side, Newt. That's what Newt's tablet.
And that would
called
be
it.
what the movie calls it, production. So that would be the canon name. Got it. Okay. I
Right.
was just curious. Anywho, that thing now is walking up to Mount Fuji alone because it has absolutely crushed everything else. All resistance is gone. All hope is lost. It's a very depressing ending, let me tell you.
Oh no! What are we gonna do?
The answer is nothing. You roll over and you take it.
Damn. Ain't that the sight of America now?
Ooh, topical.
Damn.
Anywho, they come up with a slapdash plan where they're like, wait, John Boyega is like, all right, well, if we're all gonna die anyway, I'm gonna be real fucking stupid. And he goes, how close are we to that rocket? And they go, I don't know, why? He goes, you think it could get us into like at least like low orbit? And they're like, why? And he goes, well, we've run out of options, so I figure I'm in a massive, super heavy object, and I'm just gonna throw it at the giant monster. And they're like, that's an insane plan. Also might work, but that's an insane plan, sir. And he goes,
Now,
yeah.
mind you, Nate, his co-pilot, has basically been taken out at this
Ooh,
point.
yeah, he has. He did not. He got slapped real hard. And John Boyega tried to be Raleigh, and he's not Raleigh, so he couldn't pilot it alone. He almost stood up, and then didn't.
Why are you saying Raleigh? You mean he's trying to be his dad? Shame on
His
you.
dad, well,
Lineage.
technically his father did it too, but yeah, they
They
both
both did it, yeah.
The only two
Respect
confirmed,
the lineage.
the only two confirmed people to do it are Raleigh and Pentecost, both of whom did it for a long period and won a fight against the kaiju while doing it, which is insane.
Well, Pentecost won the fight. He just got back to the shore.
Well, no, he won the fight because his brother gets ripped out during it, and he kills the thing, and they both get sucked into the ocean.
Oh,
And
you're
then
right.
he walks to the coast of Alaska. So he walked after winning the fight against the kaiju. So he's just underwater, and that cockpit is just flooded, and he's just probably half passed out that whole time. Anywho,
Oh God,
yeah,
that water.
wicked
Oof,
cold
it's
too.
cold.
But so his crazy idea is throw Gypsy into like low orbit and then just point Gypsy at the giant monster and be like, "This is our last bet," and just slam it into the giant kaiju.
How did you forget that Scrapper was involved?
I don't know. We're getting there. Why are you spoiling? What the hell is wrong with you?
Go on. Finish
Anywho,
us out.
so they're.
Finish me off, Will.
How are we going? No. So they're doing their thing, and they're like, "What are we gonna do?" And then, hey, surprise! Lady who runs the giant company is now a good guy. She outfitted Scrapper with drone controls, and she basically ripped out the cockpit and stuck it at their like home base. So she's back at the Shatterdome in that very like, it looks a lot like a really crappy treadmill from the 80s, and she's sprinting along on that thing awkwardly, and she's piloting Scrapper as it gets dropped through like 2 buildings, and it's in its sonic mode, and then it pops out and it grabs the rocket, picks it up, runs over to Gypsy, and they're like, well, we don't really have a way to mount this to ourselves. And she goes, okay, I can weld it to your hand. And they're like, yeah, screw it, go do that. So she welds it, and while she's welding it, because, you know, they're doing this as fast as they can, she burns too close to where the fuel is, and it just lights. So she is still attached to Gypsy. She grabs on for dear life as Gypsy just gets dragged along the ground, smacks into a building, and then shoots up into the air, dragged by its own hand, awkwardly, very high in the air. And then the... Huh?
I like this scene for a separate reason as well. It calls back to the first one for anyone who like remembers all this stuff. Is I like how Amara was like, yeah, I totally was gonna add weapons to that. Yeah, good idea. Yeah, I was totally gonna do that. And Jake was like, no, you weren't.
Yeah, just like,
Right?
no, you weren't.
And that just looks like, oh, he's just ripping her. But then you have to remember,
He's connected.
way back, he's connected, and that was emphasized heavily in the first movie, a bit more than this one. So she really
No.
had no plans
No.
for adding weapons to the Scrapper. Her only goal was hamster ball and
Yeah.
run.
Because she's a kid, And this lady is a full-grown adult who runs a company whose job it was to build kaiju fighting robots. So she has spent years working on these things, developing plans, and it's like, yeah, you give her about a couple hours and some resources, and she'll outfit the robot with extra stuff. She's the reason that the cool Obsidian
Right.
Fury giant chain swords wound up in Gypsy, because she retrofitted them inside.
She's like, she said, I have 6 hours to go up with some pretty cool shit. Okay, chainsword's there. You go there. I have to put a gun on
I
this
gotta
thing.
put something
like,
in here.
Like what? I have to put a. She goes, do you want the decoy system in there? The robot system in there? Do we not have a pilot to pilot this? No. Okay, get the system in there. I bet the first thing she thought of, I need to put a gun on this piece of shit, because if worst comes to worst, I'm going to try. Or whoever's gonna pilot is gonna try.
I love that her very aggressive solution to sometimes you just gotta shoot your problems. She's not wrong. I can't argue with her logic.
Not wrong.
Would have been a much shorter movie.
Sound logic.
So they fly into orbit, and then they angle themselves forward with their fists ahead of the rest of the robot to kind of help guide it. And they wind up having to fire the plasma gun a few times, and then they put the hand back forward, and they're going. And she doesn't have an escape pod because Nate, who was out of commission, took the escape pod on her side. So she has to buddy up with John Boyega's character, and they have to both be in one. But that also means that while they're rocketing with a massive hole in the cockpit, hitting them with wind, she has to essentially trust that he will be able to grab her as soon as she releases, so that then he can pull her over and they can both use his escape pod. And they go to do that, and oh no, wouldn't you look at it? It failed, and they both accept their death, just like in Toy Story 3. And with that acceptance comes the surprise of, oh yeah, Scrapper has a welding torch and is still stuck to the back of Gypsy. So it bores a hole in the back of the cockpit, and then they jump inside of Scrapper, who leaps off like right before it hits, and then it just hamster balls to bleed off all the kinetic energy, and they wind up surviving. And
go, Samus, go!
Yep. And then when it smacks into the giant kaiju, that was a pretty explosion. I really liked that.
Now, do you see why it actually died?
Because it got hit so hard, it got dragged back like probably a mile or something and torn in half.
Yeah.
It got blown in half, and it took it a second to die, but it was dead. It was very dead.
And then the final moment is Jake and Amara snowball fighting.
Oh, that was adorable. And then also, again, those two, I'm almost disappointed. There's an entire other film where it's just a human drama, because the two of them really do come off as getting along and actually knowing each other. It works.
Mm-hmm.
Their on-screen chemistry is basically strangers before this movie was in production, essentially. But being able to bring the human connection, it works really well for them. And it works with a couple of other characters too, because the actors make it work. But the two of them, it's very believable that they essentially have a really strong relationship. So,
David, did you watch the post-credit scene or mid-credit scene?
Yeah, there's a mid-credit scene. I thought there's only a right before the credits scene where Jake is talking to. Okay, yeah. So real quick, before I say that, I want to say, going once again, the Starship Troopers feeling is, oh no, it actually is getting back up. They failed, and then the monster if it could have looked back, if its neck allowed it to look back,
I know
it would have, but it has no neck. It. Like a shark, it must accept the fate in which it knows, oh no, I have no legs and my right arm is gone.
Well, one of them. Two of them?
Oh no.
It's interesting that you think of that when it comes to having no neck, because the first thing I think of is Conker's Bad Fur Day.
I played it only once, so that's not really my memory all that much.
I think it's a pitchfork. I think it's a pitchfork that you end up rescuing, who tries to hang himself. He can't hang himself because he has
got no neck.
And they actually say, "You dumb bastard, you ain't even got a neck."
Such a dark joke. That whole game is dark.
Yeah. But anyways.
But So that was great. Once again, mentioned the whole snowball fight, great. And then we get to the part that makes me go, man, they really, really wanted to try to make
Mm-hmm.
a fucking sequel
Mm-hmm.
here, because you get Jake knocking out a Newt, and then they all give each other high fives, right? And then goes cuts, and then we go to Jake being all like, this is where I start getting nitpicky a little bit. This is my
Mm-hmm.
nitpicky moment, where Jake's all like, yeah, no, yeah, Newt is basically pretty much
Mm-hmm.
controlled by the aliens now, the progenitors, and he's like, no, you guys suck, your crappy planet sucks, fuck you, I spit in your grave, your mama's a hoe, all that shit, right? And then Jake's like, no, we're actually gonna take the fight to you, and a part of me is like, pause. What fight are you gonna take to who? Yeah, you can open a breach again. That's not the issue here. The issue is, one, in Pacific Rim 1, you had to detonate a nuke in order for you guys to win. And then in Pacific Rim 2, you had to essentially do a rod from God with your Jaeger into their strongest monster to beat it,
Mm-hmm.
right? I go, you have not won a 1v1 with the biggest threat they have available to them, and you're just gonna go to their house?
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. We've been on
You
the
know what I
back
mean?
foot in both
Like,
movies, and we never actually show, like, human ingenuity never actually wins over the aliens. We scrape together a
right?
win in both films, but despite the bluster, we don't actually have anything to back that up because we don't.
It Exactly. Like if the progenitors took into account the fact that are humans in these kind of noble sacrifice situations are down to do the most destructive thing possible, even if they don't come out of it in the end, right? This very much is like this very much feels like a the invaders wouldn't think about why would the humans kill themselves to beat us, right?
Mhm.
Like where's the self preservation? Or because I have to imagine they know what a
At
nuke
this
is,
point, yeah.
right? So, so I bet they would be like, why would you
Mhm.
nuke yourself, right? I bet they were probably thinking that. I have to imagine. And in this one, it's like, yeah, they could not have predicted, a comet reentry essentially to take out their kaiju, but they have not won a soundly 1v1, and they've been outmaneuvered by one guy and an iPad, and all of their Jaegers were taken out with one guy and an iPad. So a part of me is like, I get it. You want to have a cool, badass
Mhm.
thing at the end. You want to have John Boyega carry the series because he's currently doing it in Star Wars. It's gonna be great. Everyone's high-fiving, but it's like you guys haven't won. Oh, guys have not won a sound conclusion to the war-ending victory yet. You guys have barely made it. It has come down to a handful of people with enough determination to effectively kill themselves in order
It's
for
also
everyone
been a
else
lot
to
of
win.
luck.
Yeah, luck. Because, like, who would have thought, you know, I would be like, yeah, nuclear bomb would for sure work, right? Like, I could see that from the human point of view. Like, the amount of damage that we've done to our own planet, I could totally be like, yeah, a nuke would totally win. There's no way for you to know that you would even hit your target if you were coming in from space, and you don't even know if you would even, like, hit them in a way in which you would do an insta kill for them not to recover because they have 3 brains. You could also argue that they could just drag their dumb body
Mhm.
up the mountain back up again if they really wanted to, but obviously they couldn't. They didn't, I should say, because the movie ended. But that. So yeah, no, it's really bold, and it's purely that line is purely there to bait a
Mhm.
continuation of the IP
So,
because in universe it makes it's way too much bravado and bluster.
so with that being said, there has been no sequel, sadly.
Of any kind.
Of course.
Well, that's not entirely true.
No.
There was an anime series
Yeah,
that was
that's true.
released. That anime series has been released on Netflix, and it's actually really good.
Where
but
does
it
that take
doesn't follow
place?
the. Let me pull it up right now. Give me 1 second.
I haven't watched it, but I know that it involves robots and kaiju, which means to me it takes place like during or before the first film, I have to assume.
It says set in the same universe as the original film, and it doesn't take place before. It takes place after 2.
Huh.
And the only reason I say this is because there's a certain thing that I mentioned earlier. Or remember how I said when Shao ended up taking down the drones, except one survives in this show.
Oh, that's what the show's based off of.
And
Okay.
sort of. It's definitely a piece, and that particular thing, without going into too much, that particular drone ended up becoming sentient. Not even part of a hive mind, not related to, any kind of humans. It is the perfect amalgamation of, drone and kaiju technology, and it became sentient.
Okay. So that is
Gotcha.
it takes
Yeah.
place after number 2 in the universe of Pac Rim. Okay.
Yep.
I need to watch it at some point.
So-
but...
It's really good, and it's only 14 episodes.
Oh wow. Dang.
Yeah.
And also, isn't there? I think after the podcast that we recorded, or maybe it was like before, wasn't there new Pacific Rim information that was
And
released
that was
recently?
the next thing I was going to bring up.
Yeah.
They have just announced a brand new Kickstarter project, which has already been 83% funded, it looks like, called Pacific Rim: The Final Breach. It is a technically 6-issue series of the actual proposed sequel that concludes everything.
Okay, so this would have been Pacific Rim 3, but we're going to be honest, we're not getting that funding. It's not going to happen. So here's the story we
Yep.
were going to write.
Yep.
Okay.
And so it looks like that the first volume is slated for October of this year, but it looks like that they're going to be a while before they can release the other 2 volumes, because they're going to be releasing 2 issues per volume. Volume 1 is October, Volume 2 is 2026, Volume 3 is
Jesus.
2027.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a lot. And there's a lot of room in there for stuff to go wrong.
Yeah. But, hey, the fact that we're finally getting something, I cannot wait.
Are we-
It's another 3 years waiting for, reason for me to live.
Are we talking about like full color American comic style or more like
Full
manga?
color American comic.
Okay.
Who's making it? Dark Horse?
No, hang on. I actually have their information up right now. Let's see. It is being made by Legendary Comics.
Oh, okay. Because they've been doing stuff for their
No,
movies.
so they
That
didn't
makes sense.
outsource it.
Yeah. And let me go ahead and actually pull up the information on like who is actually like the writing and shit. Let me see.
I'm not.
Come on. There we go. Blah 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 blah. Raleigh Beckett. Come on.
Yeah.
Show me what you got. It's gonna have Raleigh. It's gonna have Jake. They've already got some like pre-art in there, and the pre-art viz is actually really cool. The writer is Joshua Hale Fialkov. Looking to see what he's done. He's an Emmy and Eisner winner and a Harvey Award winner
Oh,
for graphic novels,
okay.
TV, and animation.
So,
He did The Ultimates, I, Vampire, The Bunker.
so he's
He
actually
also
written
worked on Young
comics.
Justice.
So theoretically,
he also
he'll know
did
what
Young
he's doing.
Justice and Avatar: The Last Airbender.
Nice. Probably some of the comics, like the TV show, or he did the comic books that came afterward.
The TV show.
Oh, nice. He worked on that at some point. That's cool.
Yeah.
That's a good resume. Sounds like he's got a lot of experience.
Like honestly, even if he wasn't on the TV show, apparently I haven't read them because I've not. I'm very much like once I'm done with a series, I'm done with a series. I don't care anymore, right? But for people who love Avatar, apparently the comics fucking
Jake
go
Sully.
in. Like they're really good. Oh, but no more with your Avatar. Enough of you. But apparently the Last Airbender comics.
No,
He
just
works
call
with
it
it.
Avatar. It's his problem. He has to figure it out.
No. Yeah. it's his disability.
Yep.
We just grin and bear it.
Wow. Wow. Okay.
Yeah, but apparently those comics go in. People like my friend. I have 2 friends that followed it and read it. They loved it, and then I saw a few people online. I have associates I talked to in other games and such, and I haven't heard anything too bad about it. I would say the most I hear about it that's negative is they wish they did more with that one girl's sister. That one guy's sister, the lightning girl,
yeah,
Azula.
Oh. Yeah.
They wish she had a
Yeah.
little bit more screen time. But so even if he did work on the comics, I mean, like, people wanting more of your work isn't exactly a slight against you either. So I mean, these comics, even though like that he didn't write those comics, he did the show. But still, like, he has a good resume if that's the case. I like what I've heard so far.
Yeah. So I'm excited for it to come out. I'm not on the fence of pre-ordering. It's just I need to make sure that I have the money for it to do that. But I can't wait. I love this series, and I cannot wait to see how they finally decide to end it.
Mm-hmm.
So, but you guys should definitely watch the Netflix anime. That is such a good show, and it brings in different aspects that I did not expect. And I don't want to go into them until you guys watch it, because as much as I don't care for spoiler culture, this is one that I'm actually going to remain silent on for you guys.
Okay. If you're gonna be that adamant about it, I mean, I guess I gotta take, give it a
Oh yeah,
look.
Definitely. I would definitely do like
you're really the strong and stuff like
I would
that.
love to do like a rewatch on that, maybe as a special one day. But other than that, that's really all that I've got to say about this wonderful movie. You guys, anything else you want to add?